Our story begins several months ago, deep within the cold stone of the labyrinth. A young man, Vim, recalls his terror before the monstrous floor lord. He knew that choosing glory over survival would have certainly meant his death. His female comrade lay motionless on the fractured stone floor. The party swordsman was also down, defeated and covered in grime. Even their powerful mage had been struck down in the battle. He stood alone, the sole survivor, as a comrade's arm faintly twitched. He desperately wondered if his fallen party members were still breathing. Suddenly, a massive, segmented tail swung towards his fallen friends. The colossal floor lord, Gerald, towered over him with a terrifying grin. The beast's massive, unblinking eye fixed its gaze upon the adventurers. Vim trembled, realizing the overwhelming, absolute power of a floor lord. Its tail crashed down, obliterating the spot where his party lay. A single attack had incapacitated them all. He had to escape. He considered carrying them or fighting, but knew both options were futile. With grim resolve, Vim Shutterhouse realized there was only one path left. He took a deep, steadying breath, preparing to make his choice. He invoked the name of a mysterious skill, Transfer, Puppeteer. A surge of power coursed through him as the skill activated. He finally admitted the truth. His only option was to save himself. A warm memory surfaced of his party, Dragon's Fong, accepting him. The monster's cruel, gleeful grin shattered the happy memory. The floor lord's eye locked onto him, ready for the kill. The ground shook with the force of another devastating attack. The colossal beast lunged forward, letting out a deafening roar. He resigned himself to his fate, believing this to be his end. But then, in a blur of motion, the world around him shifted. The cold labyrinth was gone, replaced by the dragon's Fong party house. He found himself standing before his party, all alive and well. Utterly bewildered, he stammered, unable to comprehend the situation. He sensed something was wrong as a hand tightened on a sword. His confusion turned to shock as danger suddenly appeared before him. A sword was thrust inches from his face, a silent, deadly threat. Kronos, the leader, coldly ordered him to get out, calling him trash. Melis and Nicholas stood by, accusing him of trying to steal glory. Nicholas scoffed at the idea that he could be a hero. Kronos claimed it was his sword and Melis's magic that won. Panicked, Vim insisted he only thought of it as a team victory. He recalled kneeling over the beast, expecting praise from his comrades. But he was met only with accusation, leaving him utterly confused. They turned on him, blaming his weak enchantments for the difficult fight. One of them coldly declared that he was the one at fault. He realized with horror that these people he fought with now hated him. The weight of their collective hatred crushed his spirit. Back in the present, he fell to his knees, apologizing profusely. He explained that as an enchanter, he had nowhere else to go. He begged them to let him stay, declaring this his only home. Kronos looked down at him, his expression cold and completely unmoved. A cruel glint appeared in his eye as he considered Vim's plea. He then made a proposition that took Vim by complete surprise. If Vim could defeat him in a duel, he would be allowed to stay. Vim knew it was an impossible challenge for a non-combatant like him. He thought that another miracle like the one before would not happen. Kronos mocked his despair, his face twisting into a cruel sneer. With a sudden, violent motion, Kronos lashed out at him. He delivered a vicious kick that sent Vim sprawling across the floor. He called Vim a useless weakling, capable only of beginner magic. Kronos screamed in his face, enraged by his defiance. Nicola tried to intervene, but Kronos simply scoffed at her. As Vim lay defeated, Kronos towered over him, calling him small fry. Internally, Kronos seethed with jealousy over Vim's unlikely victory. Vim coughed, thinking of how he had risked his life for them. All he had ever wanted was to repay their kindness. But now his gratitude had been twisted into this nightmare. As his spirit finally broke, a new figure appeared in the doorway. He looked up from the floor, startled by the sudden arrival. An elegant, bespectacled elf stood watching the scene unfold. Vim, still on the floor, could only wonder who she was. Kronos announced that this was Sophia, his new replacement. Sophia declared she would be a true asset to the party. Kronos grabbed Vim's head, his voice low and threatening. With a triumphant smile, he delivered the final, devastating words. He shoved Vim's face to the floor as his world shattered. The scene shifts to the sprawling metropolis of Firenburon. Its grand clock tower stood as a symbol of adventurers' dreams. This was Firenburon, the labyrinth city, filled with hope and ambition. The city thrived on treasures brought back from the labyrinth's depths. A merchant proudly sold a top-grade magic stone from the 60th floor. Adventurers traded their finds for gold, silver, and other treasures. The labyrinth held monster materials and vistas not found on the surface. Here, the bonds forged in battle were said to be thicker than blood. Yet amidst this world of heroes, Vim walked utterly alone. Haunted by betrayal, a single, bleak thought consumed his mind. He knew his unpopular enchanter class made finding a new party hopeless. His self-loathing was so great, he felt worthless to any team. He found his way to a cheap tavern called the Perching Branch. From inside, he could hear the sounds of boisterous celebration. With his spirit crushed, he prepared to enter the tavern. He clutched the last few coins he had to his name. He decided that a drink was the only solace left to him. As the door chimed open, a cheerful voice called out a welcome. The waitress, Greta, greeted him by name with a brilliant smile. She told him that she had heard the wonderful news about his party. She congratulated him on Dragon's Fong's victory over the Floor Lord. The entire tavern erupted in cheers, celebrating him as a hero. She mentioned their impending promotion, but Vim knew it wasn't for him. He simply ordered a beer and the tavern's specialty sausage. A massive, glistening sausage was placed on a plate before him. He slowly cut into the meal, his mind lost in memory. The taste was a painful echo of a celebration he no longer shared. Vim takes a bite of food, thinking that his current situation has robbed it of all flavor. A strange, pained laugh escapes his lips before he can stop it. He claps a hand over his mouth, shocked by the sound he just made. He remembers Kronos calling his laugh disgusting, a thought that makes him sweat. Staring at his meal, he reminds himself that he is no longer part of Dragon's Fong. He glances over at a table of loud, celebrating adventurers, feeling utterly alone. A memory surfaces of time he celebrated with his own party. He was never good at fitting in, but he admits to himself that it was fun. The thought of that fun now hangs over his plate, a painful reminder of what he lost. His vision blurs as tears well in his eyes, tainting the happy memory. He collapses onto the table, sobbing that he has no place to belong anymore. The waitress, Greta, watches his breakdown with a look of pure, helpless concern. The tavern door jingles open as a young woman's voice calls out his name. He looks up in shock, asking why Haidmary is here. She rushes towards him, her face full of worry, breathing his name. The scene shifts to a grand, ornate building under a starry night sky. The massive structure is revealed to be the imposing Adventurers Guild headquarters. Inside, Kronos reports to the guild master, confirming the kill of the Floor Lord Greatjaw. The guild master asks how it went, noting the report claims a 4-person victory. An image shows the monster's corpse. The report states the wounds were from a Yamakatana. Kronos admits that while there were other injuries, they didn't constitute real damage. The guild master's fist clenches silently on his desk, his disapproval palpable. His shadowed face speaks, confirming that only Vim Shutterhouse uses that particular skill. The chilling conclusion is reached. A non-combatant enchanter defeated the Floor Lord alone. Elsewhere, a magical map of the city is being consulted through a gear-like lens. Haidmary wonders why Vim's transmitter crest is at an inn, not the party house. She reaches for a different magical tool, her thief stone, for eavesdropping. She activates the stone, a complex magic circle glowing above the small gem. Through the device, she hears Kronos' cruel voice telling Vim to get lost. Her hand clenches in silent fury, thinking of what that man did to her Vim. A new chapter begins, titled A Friend from Home, focusing on Vim's haunted face. The tavern door swings open as Hail Mary's voice calls out for Vim. She stands in the doorway, spotting him sitting alone at the bar. She rushes to his side, her expression worried as she repeats his name. The waitress, Greta, turns and cheerfully welcomes the newcomer. Greta playfully greets her as Suchan the Stalker, much to Hail Mary's annoyance. Hail Mary angrily corrects her, insisting her name is not Suchan. Greta continues to tease, asking what a cowgirl is doing here. Hail Mary ignores the banter, focusing all her attention on Vim. She leans in, her voice soft with concern, and asks if he is all right. Vim wonders how the news about Dragon's Fong has already spread so far. Hail Mary confidently states that she knows, asking how he thinks she found out. She says it's only natural that she would be aware of his situation. With an intense smile, she declares that she knows everything about him. Vim recoils, calling her creepy, but she insists it's because they're from the same town. He sweats, clearly unconvinced by her flimsy explanation. Greta interrupts, asking Suchan what she wants with Vim. Vim awkwardly tries to explain that he has just been fired from Dragon's Fong. The entire tavern falls silent as the patrons turn to stare in shock. A plate of Snowball sweets sits on the bar, a silent witness to the drama. The patrons begin to gossip, wondering why he was fired right before an A-rank promotion. They murmur that they've heard of the other 3 members, but never of Vim. Hail Mary chews thoughtfully, listening to Vim's dejected explanation. He mentions that he left his documents behind, figuring it would be fine without him. He believes his replacement, Sophia, is so capable that anyone could do his job. Hail Mary asks if Sophia is the long-eared elf who took his place. She guesses that Sophia must be Kronos' new woman, much to Vim's surprise. Vim sadly admits that's probably the case. He reflects on his time with the party, acknowledging the atmosphere wasn't healthy. That same pained, forced smile appears on his face once again. Hail Mary watches him closely, a small piece of food on her fork. She asks him if that particular smile has come back. Vim looks up, completely confused by her question. He panics, apologizing profusely and asking if his smile was disgusting. She calmly tells him no, it wasn't. She says she likes his smile, that it's very him, and was sad when he forced it away. He gets flustered, telling her not to use words like so casually. She just beams at him, insisting that it's fine for her to say it. He tells her to stop, trying to bury his face in his notebook as she eats. She puts down her fork, her expression turning deadly serious. She tells him that she cannot forgive the real reason he was fired. She slams her hands on the bar, declaring that he defeated the floor lord alone. Vim chokes on his drink, sputtering in utter disbelief at her words. She insists Dragon's Fong lacked the power, so he must have been the one to do it. He shouts in denial, asking where she heard such a thing and insisting he only landed the final blow. He tries to explain it away as a fluke where everyone's damage just added up. She calmly counters that any attack besides his likely did no real damage. He waves his hands frantically, saying it's impossible and she's overestimating him. He thinks of his former party, insisting their talent was far greater than his. He desperately asks why she holds him in such high regard. She simply replies that the reason should be obvious. Another waitress interrupts, calling Hail Mary Suchan again. The waitress says she's never heard of anyone soloing a floor lord in this city. Greta tells her not to encourage the stalker with such strange ideas. The second waitress scolds Greta for eavesdropping and making wild statements. The two of them bicker as Vim looks on, completely lost. Vim tries to de-escalate, claiming he was fired because of a trust issue he caused. Hail Mary glares, her teeth gritted in frustration at his self-blame. She slams her hand down hard on the wooden bar. She explodes in a comical rage, yelling that his perception is completely warped. She turns to Greta and angrily demands a beer for herself. Greta warns her that it's strong, but Hail Mary insists on something potent. Vim watches, exhausted, as Greta agrees to pour a single cup. A massive tankard is placed before a pouting, determined Haidmary. After one drink, she begins to drunkenly ramble about fables and cognitive dissonance. She then immediately passes out, face-planting onto the bar. Greta notes that it was only her first cup, as Haidmary mumbles for another. Vim decides it's time to call in night and take the drunken girl home. As he helps her up, she groggily pushes a small object towards him. He takes the card from her hand, looking at it with utter confusion. With newfound purpose, Haidmary slides a formal card across the tavern table. The elegant crest is revealed, a dragonfly on a moon, the symbol of Night Dragonfly. She explains that she was scouted by the prestigious party and quickly made a name for herself. She tells a stunned Vim to bring the card to their party house the next day. Vim is shocked as she offers him a trial run, a chance to work with them. She boasts that as a candidate for the next leader, arranging this is no trouble at all. Later that night, the full moon hangs over the quiet streets of Fire and Buron. Vim gives the deeply intoxicated Haidmary a piggyback ride home. He walks through the deserted cobblestone streets, carrying his drunken charge. A woman sees them and asks if he is all right, suggesting an enhancement might help. Vim smiles, saying that as an enchanter, this much weight is no problem for him. The woman waves goodbye, warning him to be wary of other drunks out this late. Vim continues his solitary walk down a dark, winding alleyway. His face is a mask of anxiety as he mulls over Haidmary's incredible offer. He worries that joining Night Dragonfly will only make the other members resent him. He believes that someone like him will just be a nuisance to such an elite party. His greatest fear is that he will just end up being hated all over again. Suddenly, a glass bottle comes flying through the air toward him. It smashes against a nearby wall with a deafening crash, showering the alley with glass. The sound of boisterous laughter echoes from further down the darkened path. Two drunken men are playing a foolish game. One complains that his friend completely missed. The other man takes a long, sloppy swig from his own bottle. He lets out a satisfied sigh, boasting that it is his turn to throw next. He brags to his friend that his next throw will definitely hit the target. Vim stops in his tracks, a bead of sweat on his face as he sees the trouble ahead. He flinches, startled by the sudden, aggressive noise in the quiet night. The two drunks look up, their expressions changing as they finally notice him. One of them stumbles forward, calling out to Vim in a slurred voice. He aggressively asks what Vim thinks he's doing carrying that girl on his back. Haidmary remains fast asleep, completely oblivious to the escalating situation. The men's faces contort in rage as they recognize her, calling her a thief. Vim is utterly bewildered, repeating the word thief in disbelief. They angrily explain that she bought the entire stock of limited edition sweets they wanted. Vim sighs, thinking that calling her a thief for that is a bit of an overreaction. They loom over him, demanding that he wake her up so she can formally apologize. Paralyzed by his non-confrontational nature, Vim wonders what he should do. His hesitation only fuels their anger as they yell at him for staying silent. Vim's expression hardens, his indecision replaced by quiet resolve. One of the men loses his patience and roughly grabs Haidmary's shoulder. A magic circle flares on Vim's arm as he instantly enhances his own body. The man's projectile flies through the air, striking the spot where Vim just stood. The two drunks are left staring at an empty space, wondering where he went. They look around the now empty alley, completely baffled by his disappearance. A bead of sweat drips down one of the men's faces as confusion turns to fear. Far down the street, Vim apologizes to Haidmary, admitting he ate some sweets too. The two men stare in the distance, their mouths agape in shock. Vim hurries away, worried that he might have angered the men further. The two adventurers are left sweating, stunned by the impossible display of speed. One of them recognizes Haidmary's twin tails, identifying her from Night Dragonfly. The other realizes the man who moved so fast must be one of her powerful comrades. They look at each other in terror, realizing they just provoked the city's elite. The sound of Vim's supernaturally fast footsteps echoes down the empty street. A shot of the city's clock tower shows that the night is growing late. Vim continues his journey, carrying Haydmary through the quiet city. He finally stops to rest, thinking he has put enough distance between them. Haydmary begins to stir, groaning softly as she starts to wake up. Vim notices and asks if she is awake and able to walk on her own now. She just hugs him tighter, mumbling that it is impossible for her to walk. Vim gives a small, tired smile, thinking that this is a lot of trouble to go to. He sits down at a quiet spot, his shoulders slumping as his self-doubt returns. He thinks that Haydmary is a future leader, while he is just a user of a rare class. He tells himself that he shouldn't be associating with her, that it'll cause her trouble. Suddenly, Haydmary's sharp voice cuts him off, telling him that's enough. She grabs him by the shoulders, her expression now one of fierce intensity. She tells him that he possesses limitless potential and must realize his true strength with her party. Looking him straight in the eye, she passionately insists that he must live as he pleases. A small panel emphasizes the strength and conviction in her grip. Vim is stunned into silence, completely taken aback by her sudden ferocity. He tries to deflect her words, suggesting she is just being kind to him. She looks down, thanking him for coming to her when she was in trouble. He dismisses it, saying she's just a busybody who should live her own life. She looks up, insisting that she is not acting out of a sense of obligation. A confused Vim asks what she means, unable to understand her motives. He asks what her reason is, if not sympathy or a sense of duty. She leans in close, her face flushed as she says he just doesn't notice. Vim is utterly bewildered, asking what she could possibly be talking about. He clenches his fist in confusion, completely lost by her cryptic words. She whispers into his ear that when it comes to him, she knows everything. A title card introduces Night Dragonfly, an A-rank party with over 100 members. Their party house is an imposing mansion, reflecting their immense power and wealth. A stern-looking guard in full-plate armor stands watch at the wrought iron gate. The guard watches as Vim nervously paces back and forth outside the entrance. Vim sweats, his anxiety building as he wonders if he can really go through with this. The guard eyes him with growing suspicion, wondering what this strange person is doing. Finally, the guard steps forward and confronts Vim, asking him his business. Vim is visibly intimidated by the armored adventurer's stern presence. He nervously pats himself down, fumbling as he searches for the business card. The guard mistakes his frantic movements for reaching for a weapon and becomes tense. Vim finally finds the card and timidly presents it, explaining that Haydmary gave it to him. The guard's expression transforms into one of utter shock as he reads the card. Vim is completely baffled by the guard's sudden and dramatic change in demeanor. A flashback reveals Haydmary's magical surveillance tools, a listening device, and a tracking crest. The grand doors swing open, and Haydmary welcomes Vim to Night Dragonfly with a bright smile. Vim stares, his mouth agape, at the magnificent and opulent interior of the mansion. A large banner bearing the party's crest hangs proudly in the grand foyer. The hall is vast, with glittering chandeliers and exquisitely detailed tile work. Vim is amazed to see a large, ornate fountain bubbling away inside the building. He remarks that this feels less like a party house and more like a grand estate. He nervously turns to speak to the person standing behind him. The guard, Arbel, bows his head and apologizes for his rudeness, admitting he couldn't see Vim's power. Arbel and Vim argue over who is at fault, while Haydmary scolds the guard. Arbel teases Haydmary, who furiously denies being cold to men, startling Vim. Annoyed, Haydmary dismisses the argument and pulls Vim deeper into the mansion. The grand inner doors creak open, revealing the hall beyond. The vast hall is filled with the assembled members of Night Dragonfly. Haydmary proudly announces their arrival to Chimera with a nervous Vim in tow. The party's leader, Chimera, stand with an imposing and regal presence. Chimera's sharp eyes appraise him, a knowing smile on her lips. Vim stares up in awe and intimidation, realizing who stands before him. The legendary silver-haired Chimera walks forward with an aura of immense power. She towers over him, remarking that he is smaller than she expected. Chimera apologizes playfully, while Haidmary fumes that Vim isn't following her script. The powerful leader extends her gauntlet hand in a gesture of welcome. He nervously shakes her hand, introducing himself as the one fired from Dragon's Fawn. Vim is stunned by her crushing grip, but politely completes the greeting. Chimera explains that Haidmary has told her all about him. She asks him what exactly he did for his former party, Dragon's Fawn. Vim humbly explains his menial roles of scouting and administrative work. Haidmary scolds him for being too honest, but he mutters it's the truth. With a bright smile, Chimera assigns him to the rearguard for their next expedition. Vim is utterly shocked, realizing the trial is an immediate, full-scale labyrinth dive. He frantically asks Haidmary what is going on, as this wasn't what he expected. He panics at the thought of diving with so many elite adventurers at once. Haidmary reassures him with a bright smile, telling him it's time to go. Overwhelmed with terror, Vim can only stare in wide-eyed panic. They enter the dark, foreboding maw of the labyrinth itself. The entire party assembles around a glowing teleportation pedestal within the dungeon. The pedestal activates, its intricate magic circle flaring with brilliant light. In a blinding flash of energy, the teleportation sequence begins. An explanation reveals that transfer gates are the primary method of labyrinth travel. A diagram shows how defeating bosses can unlock special floor-skipping portals. The party marches in a long column through a narrow, ancient stone passage. Haidmary and Vim walk together, a small distance from the main group. One of the other adventurers turns his head, noticing the two of them. The veteran adventurer glances back with a curious expression on his face. Haidmary's expression is serious as she prepares to speak to Vim. She calls out his name, her expression focused and direct. She holds out a blindfold, asking him to wear it for a little while. She explains their secret routes must be protected from non-members like him. Vim readily agrees, understanding the value of their secret travel information. With the blindfold secure, he nods his assent to continue. She gently takes his hand to guide him through the darkness. They stand together in the stone corridor, hand in hand. Haidmary playfully teases him for his boldness in holding her hand. A flustered, blindfolded Vim insists it's only for practical reasons. She tells him she doesn't mind at all and dismisses his protests. They proceed, using a series of secret teleporters to advance. They arrive in a vast, ancient chamber, the labyrinth's 97th floor. Vim marvels at their speed, awestruck by the power of an A-rank party. His awe quickly turns to dread, convinced he will be a burden. He feels his past experience is useless in such a professional operation. Chimera observes his muttering, noting that he is nervous and cautious. She acknowledges caution is good, but decides to intervene. Chimera suddenly grabs his jacket, startling him with her strength. She tells the boy that being too cowardly isn't safe either. She reveals she knows he defeated this floor's lord before her party could. Stunned, Vim realizes she knows his secret, but she tells him not to worry. She reassures him their goal is just mapping, so he should relax. Touched by her kindness, Vim is nearly moved to tears. Haidmary encourages him to relax, saying everyone in Night Dragonfly is kind. Despite her words, Vim's face is still etched with anxiety. A faint, unnatural sound suddenly echoes through the ancient stone passage. He halts abruptly, his expression one of shock and alarm. Haidmary asks what's wrong, but he dismisses it as his imagination. She wonders if it's a trap, suggesting he should probably report it. Deciding to be safe, he resolves to expand his scouting range. He clasps his hands, beginning the incantation for a scouting spell. A brilliant, complex magic circle materializes in front of his hand. His magic scans the environment, revealing the labyrinth's hidden structure. His eyes widen as his senses lock onto a definite threat ahead. Hail Mary instructs him to report what he found to their leader. He looks nervous, still hesitant to make a formal report. The party continues its advance past the massive stone pillars. The large party makes its way up a grand, ancient staircase. Vim nervously calls out to Chimera to make his report. She turns, her communication spell active, and asks what he's found. He reports the specific location and nature of the suspected trap. Chimera's gaze sharpens as she asks him how certain he is. He gives his high probability, but worries about the consequences of failure. She tells him not to hesitate and to use the party-wide broadcast. The thought of broadcasting to the entire party makes him extremely nervous. He activates the spell, a glowing communication sigil appearing beside him. He broadcasts the trap's exact details to the entire party formation. The adventurers react with shock and confusion to the sudden warning. Seeing their commotion, Vim worries that he has made a terrible mistake. Behind him, Hail Mary can't help but give a smug, proud smile. Chimera calmly assesses that Arbel's shield can block such a trap. Arbel steps forward from the vanguard, accepting the command confidently. The corridor ahead appears empty and safe, hiding its deadly secret. Arbel stands alone in the designated spot, shield held at the ready. He plants his foot, bracing his body for the coming impact. The powerful tank moves into the precise location of the trap. He looks up as the ceiling glows, signaling the trap's activation. The colossal pillar slams down, but he meets it with his shield. The pillar shatters against the surface of his party-crested shield. He looks at the shattered remains of the pillar, impressed by its power. Through his own communication spell, he reports that the trap is cleared. Chimera and her officers receive the report, acknowledging his success. The others are stunned, unable to believe anyone could predict a trap's shape. They wonder if this incredible skill is the true power of Dragon's Fong's former member. Vim panics, frantically asking what he could have possibly done wrong. Hail Mary smugly notes that Vim's normal is extraordinary as the party looks on. Chimera and the party officers sit on the steps, completely silent and stunned. A member asks who that boy from Dragon's Fong is, marveling at his skill. A flashback shows the 4 members of Dragon's Fong, a rising B-rank party. Chimera silently wonders why a boy with such talent would ever be fired. Vim's timid voice calls out to Chimera as her sharp eye observes him. Chimera, looking at a magical device, announces that the humidity is rising. Vim adds that the low-flying insects in the area have all vanished. His eyes widen as he realizes what this means. A large predator is nearby. He identifies the threat as a Zazan, a monster that can be avoided. Chimera, her expression serious, asks him how certain he is of his analysis. He confirms he is about 90% sure, and Chimera silently considers this. She tells him that she understands his caution, but she needs him to report high-probability threats. Vim stammers an apology, flustered by the direct order and the sudden pressure. He immediately panics, thinking he's already made a terrible mistake. Chimera commands him to leave the scouting to Gaiman and prepare for combat support. Vim is horrified, thinking he's been removed from his duties because he failed. Chimera states that they will not be avoiding the Zazan, they will fight. She turns to Vim, her gaze intense, and declares she wants to see his enchantments. The memory of Kronos firing him flashes through his mind, filling him with terror. Shoulders slumped in defeat, Vim quietly agrees, vowing to do his best. He clutches his chest, heart pounding, determined not to make a single mistake. Hail Mary stands silently beside the trembling Vim, her expression unreadable. A party member calls out Chimera's name, drawing her attention. Hail Mary brightly volunteers, saying she's the best partner to showcase Vim's buffs. Chimera smiles, agreeing that this was precisely what she had in mind. Vim looks on in surprise as Hail Mary confidently stands beside him. He apologizes to Hail Mary, thanking her for her concern. With a brilliant, encouraging smile, Hail Mary tells him to show them his power. Vim reflects that he has always lived his life quietly, for the sake of others. He had dreams, but he resigned himself to doing what he could within his limits. At least, that's what he had believed until now. A massive, heavily armored turtle-like monster, the Zazan, bursts onto the scene. The creature appears at the far end of the hall as Vim watches. Mary cheerfully tells Vim to take care of the Zazan before it eats. She reminds him that everyone is watching, and this is his chance to shine. The stern-faced officers of Night Dragonfly, including Chimera, observe them intently. Vim looks back in terror, realizing the party's elite are all watching him. He feels immense pressure not to be a burden to these powerful adventurers. He begins to spiral, convinced he's bound to fail after just one day. Mary calls his name sharply, snapping him out of his self-deprecating thoughts. She tells him they'll use their ice spear attack, just like they always do. Vim repeats her words, just like always, in stunned surprise. Mary turns her back to him, readying her large, complex weapon. A close-up shows Vim's eye, now wide with focus and determination. He recalls a familiar feeling, a memory of fighting a giant spider with her. A faint, knowing smile touches his lips as his anxiety fades. He calls out, thanking Mary and telling her he's all right now. Mary begins to activate her weapon, its mechanical parts shifting. A section of the staff clicks into place with a mechanical whir. The head of the staff transforms, revealing 3 glowing energy ports. She declares that with their combined power, they can crush the beast. Vim notes her magic stone seems smaller, and she proudly explains her modifications. He smiles, genuinely impressed by her ingenuity and skill. With a determined cry, Mary begins to generate the spell's energy. Massive, intricate magic circles materialize in the air between the stone pillars. The Zazan looks up, sensing the immense build-up of magical power. An officer beside Chimera notes that the monster has noticed their attack. A colossal, ornate spear made of pure energy begins to form in the air. Vim looks up in utter awe at the impossibly large weapon hanging above them. He thinks to himself that any normal mage would be stunned by this sight. But Mary's magic is far from normal, a power only a sage can wield. A diagram explains the 2 types of magic, basic and applied. It states that sages are the strongest because they can use all magic. More importantly, they can create new spells from basic principles. Mary makes a formal declaration, consenting to receive Vim's enchantments. Vim smiles, his confidence restored, and calmly agrees to begin. He makes a quick 2-finger gesture, initiating the spell. A magic circle flares around his hand as he casts Harden and Sharpen. Lines of power flow from his circle to the crystals on the ground. The crystals glow brightly, now fully imbued with his enchanting power. The other members of Night Dragonfly watch the display with intense focus. Chimera silently wonders if the enhancement's power depends on the caster's output. The massive ice spear is now fully enchanted, glowing with a blinding light. The weapon pulses with immense, contained energy ready to be unleashed. The Zazan ignores the threat and charges forward, a blur of motion. Mary warns that the monster is coming, and Vim readies himself. With a powerful cry, Mary screams the name of the attack, Ice Spear. Vim shouts along with her, unleashing their combined and amplified power. The world dissolves into a flash of white light and vertical motion lines. A colossal pillar of ice erupts from the ground with cataclysmic force. The members of Night Dragonfly reel back, their faces masks of utter shock. The shockwave from the blast rips through the cavern, kicking up debris. The powerful adventurers shield their eyes from the storm of dust and ice. Chimera's eye narrows as she calmly observes the devastating aftermath. The Zazan is stopped dead, its thick carapace shattered and impaled by the ice. Mary pants, apologizing that the power output was greater than she expected. Vim reassures her with a smile, saying it was a perfect demonstration. Mary proudly asks for Chimera's assessment of Vim's incredible skill. Chimera brings her armored gauntlets together with a sharp, echoing clap. She begins a slow, deliberate applause, her expression completely unreadable. Vim panics again, thinking he's messed up and damaged her precious armor. Chimera calls out to Vim the boy, and he responds with a nervous squeak. She informs him of a wyvern sighting and orders him to buff the shield unit. She states that she has seen his offense and now wants to see his defense. Vim can only stammer out a yes, still reeling from the last test. Hail Mary teases him, asking if he's pleased, which he frantically denies. He tells himself that he has been given another chance and must do his best. Hail Mary looks on with exasperation, chiding him for his constant worrying. Hail Mary smugly notes that others are finally noticing her power, not just Vim. Two party members wonder about the strange enchantment, assuming it's one of Hail Mary's weird tricks. Hail Mary turns to them, asking if they said something, and they quickly deny it. The scene transitions, focusing on the cold, ancient stone of the labyrinth walls. An establishing shot shows a desolate training courtyard deep within the dungeon. Arbel, the shield unit leader, formally introduces himself and his squad to Vim. Vim is flustered, realizing this powerful leader is the same age as him. His social anxiety flares, and he freezes, unable to continue his greeting. A close-up reveals his inner panic. He can't get the words out around new people. Arbel leans in with concern, asking the stammering enchanter if he is all right. Vim panics internally, certain that the grizzled warriors must find him creepy. The traumatic memory of his old party, hating him, resurfaces with terrifying clarity. Arbel offers a kind, disarming smile, telling Vim not to be so tense. Vim is visibly stunned by this simple and unexpected act of kindness. He blushes, deeply touched by the warmth in the veteran warrior's gesture. Now calmer, Vim asks the shield unit about their previous experiences with defensive enhancements. Arbel explains they only had one enchanter before, since the class is so unpopular. Vim begins his explanation, stating that enchantments require the target's conscious consent to work. A diagram illustrates how buffs can enhance a person's body or an object's properties. He continues, clarifying that the magic won't take hold without a willing recipient. A burly, bearded tank named Mark interrupts, bluntly stating that he dislikes enhancements. Vim is taken aback by the man's sudden and openly hostile declaration. Mark introduces himself and demands that Vim explain his methods more thoroughly. He recounts delving with other enchanters, noting how buffs always felt strange and unnatural. He recalls losing control of his body or having useless elemental properties applied. Vim quickly reassures him, explaining he only uses basic, non-elemental enchantments. He adds that he uses complex combinations, so they shouldn't worry about odd effects. Mark scowls, clearly unconvinced by Vim's brief and simple explanation. Vim puffs his cheeks out in distress, realizing he's failing to communicate properly. Mark insists on a more detailed explanation, believing Vim is just an amateur. Vim frets, thinking he's made the veteran angry and doesn't know what to do. Arbel gently interjects, also asking for a more thorough explanation of Vim's skills. Vim realizes he must properly explain his methods to these elite adventurers. He asks if they're sure they want to know, telling them to ignore the buff sensation. Mark is completely baffled by this statement, asking what he could possibly mean. Vim is equally confused by their reaction, unsure why his request is strange. The other tanks ask what he means by ignoring the sensation of the buff. Vim's entire demeanor shifts, his eyes lighting up as he asks if they really want to know. Mark, caught off guard by the sudden change, hesitantly agrees to the explanation. Vim is ecstatic, admitting that no one has ever asked for a detailed explanation before. He launches into a passionate lecture, detailing the flaws of standard casting methods. He explains that since everyone's body is different, a one-size-fits-all approach is inefficient. He exclaims that a clumsy application of a buff could be as damaging as breaking a bone. He is deeply moved that the members of Night Dragonfly know so much about his class. He explains his method, analyzing 600 muscles, 103 bones, and equipment properties for custom buffs. He catches himself, sheepishly apologizing for getting carried away and talking too much. The shield unit, though overwhelmed, encourages him to continue, intrigued by his knowledge. He continues his lecture, detailing his Defense Code Group 7, a combination of 25 enhancements. Overwhelmed, Mark finally shouts, "Stop!" holding up his hands and saying he understands now. The entire shield unit looks completely stunned, their minds reeling from the information overload. Vim realizes with a nervous sweat that he has completely overdone his explanation. Mark, still processing, is amazed that Vim can apply dozens of buffs simultaneously. Vim clarifies that his method is different, breaking spells into smaller parts to save mana. He asks them to confirm that the feeling of the buff should be no different than usual. He explains that his enchantments are designed to feel incredibly natural and responsive. Convinced, Mark places a hand over his heart and formally consents to Vim's enchantment. Vim is surprised by the veteran's sudden and formal declaration of trust. Mark smiles, admitting that after hearing such a detailed explanation, he trusts Vim completely. Vim is overwhelmed with gratitude, stunned that this powerful warrior trusts him. With a confident snap of his fingers, Vim prepares to cast his spell. He declares that he will do his best as a magic circle flares to life. A glowing ring of energy materializes around Mark, who stands ready for the buff. The spell takes hold, and Vim announces that the enchantment is complete. Mark looks at his hands, confused, wondering if anything has actually happened. In the training courtyard, Arbel and Mark face off, ready to test the enhancement. Mark stands firm, his body now surrounded by a faint but powerful magical aura. Arbel takes his stance opposite him, also enveloped in a shimmering energy. With a powerful stomp, Arbel kicks up dust and charges forward to attack. He throws a mighty punch, but Mark easily blocks the blow with his forearm. Mark's armored fist cuts through the air with incredible, newfound speed. He launches a counterattack, his face a mask of intense concentration. The two tanks become blurs of motion, exchanging a flurry of powerful blows. Watching from the sidelines, Vim nervously asks how the enhancement feels. He clasps his hands together, his face tense as he awaits their verdict. Mark, still effortlessly sparring, shouts back to Vim with a wide, exhilarated grin. He declares that the feeling is indescribable, like he's moving even better than in his prime. Arbel agrees, shouting that his body feels so good he forgets he's even been buffed. He eagerly asks to test the enchantment further, and Vim happily agrees. The other tanks, amazed by the results, rush forward, begging Vim to buff them next. Overjoyed by their enthusiastic acceptance, Vim gives them a bright, confident yes. The full party stands assembled within a vast, pillared hall deep in the labyrinth. The chapter title appears, Chapter 5, Wyvern Subjugation. The full might of Night Dragonfly stands ready, with Vim now among their ranks. Vim trembles with nervous energy, the pressure of the real expedition setting in. Chimera stands beside him, calmly confirming that a powerful enemy is approaching. She asks if he is all right, and he admits he always gets nervous around big monsters. A massive, leathery wing is seen tearing through a crumbling stone wall nearby. Chimera uses her communication device, ordering all members to prepare for battle. Vim clutches his collar, his face a mask of fear and grim resolve. A monstrous wyvern smashes through the wall, its skull-like face wreathed in ethereal flame. A close-up shows the multiple, unblinking eyes set within the creature's terrifying bone mask. The entire party stares up at the beast as it perches menacingly in the archway. The wyvern's head tilts back as it inhales, preparing to unleash its attack. Chimera calmly analyzes the threat, warning that its breath attack is coming quickly. She orders the shield unit to their positions, and they roar their readiness. The wyvern opens its maw, unleashing a massive, swirling ball of fire. The fireball hurtles down towards the shield wall, which stands firm to receive it. Just before impact, a shimmering, hexagonal energy barrier materializes before the shields. The fireball strikes the barrier and ricochets back towards its source, stunning the wyvern. The monster is engulfed in its own flames, screeching in agony and utter confusion. Vim stares in shock, recognizing the impossible reflection technique from Night Dragonfly's shield unit. Mark, the burly tank commander, is utterly bewildered by what just happened. He asks his comrade if they really performed a reflection, receiving a weak confirmation. The other tanks are in confused disbelief. For all five to do, it was a miracle. Mark realizes with dawning awe that such a powerful enchantment actually exists. Chimera, seeing the wyvern stunned, decisively orders the ranged unit to open fire. The party's mages and archers prepare to unleash a coordinated magical assault. A massive bolt of combined ice and lightning energy slams into the beast. The monster screeches in pain, but the powerful spell seems largely ineffective. Hans observes that the attack isn't working, and Chimera calmly agrees with him. Vim analyzes the beast, deducing it has anti-magic defenses and is a rare subspecies. Chimera turns to Vim, remarking that this is quite a tricky wyvern. A sly, predatory smile crosses her lips, her eyes glinting with an idea. Vim looks up at his leader, completely confused by her sudden change in demeanor. One of the tanks, seeing Chimera step forward, orders the others to stand down. Chimera steps forward resolutely, declaring to her party that she is going in. She walks alone across the vast chamber, a solitary figure facing the monster. Arbel passes her on his retreat, telling her that they are counting on her. She muses that the reflection is the ultimate secret art of the shield unit. For 5 of them to perform it at once was an impossible, legendary miracle. She realizes Vim's enhancement made this miracle not a coincidence, but an inevitability. This realization fills her with a deep, consuming curiosity about his power. Spurred by this, she decides she must experience Vim's enhancement for herself. She calls out his name, and the startled Vim looks up in surprise. Chimera asks if he can apply his enhancement to her, leaving him flustered. She makes a specific request, a buff focused entirely on her attack power. She asks how much he can raise her power. He nervously suggests 3 times. She scoffs at his caution, insisting that he can push the enhancement further. Vim panics, crying out that the responsibility of buffing the leader is too great. She looks away, calmly stating her desire for a 10-fold increase in power. Vim is utterly horrified, screaming internally at what he thinks is an insane request. Chimera asks if it's possible, and he hesitantly admits that it can be done. He frantically explains the extreme risk, but she simply tells him to proceed. She reassures him that no one in the party will blame him if he fails. With a confident smile, she formally gives her consent for Vim's enchantment. Vim resigns himself, thinking she is a battle maniac, and he has no choice. His panic fades, replaced by a grim resolve as he extends his hand. He activates his analysis skill, a complex magic circle flaring before him. A glowing wireframe hologram of Chimera's entire body materializes in the air. He stares in awe at her perfect musculature, wondering if she is truly human. His analysis identifies her joint positions and calculates her center of gravity. He will construct the perfect buff, maximizing power while suppressing the immense risk. He declares the enchantment complete, and a powerful aura envelopes the party leader. She feels the power coursing through her, a confident smirk on her face. Her gauntlet hand firmly grips the hilt of her massive greatsword. She turns to face the monster, declaring she will now use Greatsword Fall. The monstrous wyvern stares back, its multiple eyes glowing with malevolent energy. Chimera stands ready, her expression one of absolute focus before the great attack. The very air around her seems to crack under the pressure of her power. Her great sword begins to glow, humming with an incredible amount of contained energy. Chimera invokes her magnification skill, preparing to unleash her ultimate technique. The blade expands into a colossal tower of pure, blinding magical energy. The rest of Night Dragonfly can only stare in utter, speechless disbelief. Vim, however, beams with excitement, recognizing the legendary greatsword fall. The other members are shocked, wondering if her technique was always this powerful. She leaps high into the air, preparing to bring the colossal blade down. Even she is shocked, admitting she has no idea how powerful this will be. The wyvern looks up, its fate sealed before the descending blade of light. The giant blade descends, about to cleave the monster and the labyrinth itself. With a mighty cry, she brings the sword down, bisecting the wyvern completely. The attack carves a trench through the floor, destroying a distant stone tower. The wyvern's body explodes in a shower of blood and shattered bone. Its multiple eyes burst from the sheer concussive force of the incredible attack. A massive cloud of dust and debris billows out from the point of impact. The other adventurers are left completely dumbfounded, their mouths agape in shock. Chimera lands gracefully in the center of the destruction she has just wrought. A look of pure, sweat-soaked exhilaration spreads across her beautiful face. The other members finally react, breaking into nervous and awestruck laughter. The entire party erupts into a massive, roaring cheer, celebrating their victory. Vim rushes to her side, frantically asking if her body is okay. She looks down at the concerned boy, her intense gaze softening with admiration. In a sudden, surprising movement, she closes the distance between them. She takes his hands, telling him it was a wonderful enhancement and she is fine. Relieved, Vim begins to explain the 5% chance of physical discomfort. Chimera looks at him, completely baffled by his immediate talk of risk statistics. He continues, explaining the risk of discomfort and even potential muscle tears. She stares at him, sweat beading on her brow, stunned by his earnestness. He confirms that while a muscle tear is painful, it's not a major injury. She asks if there are other injuries, but he insists that is the worst risk. She is still completely baffled by his intense focus on her physical well-being. The absurdity of the situation finally hits her, and she bursts into laughter. She calls him an interesting boy, leaving Vim completely confused by her laughter. She reflects on his deep knowledge, tactical mind, and first-class enchanting skills. She decides his past doesn't matter. She absolutely wants this boy in her party. She continues to laugh heartily as Vim asks what has gotten into her. Vim wonders if the enhancement had some strange, unforeseen effect on her mind. That night, the Grand Night Dragonfly party house is lit for a celebration. Inside, 3 overflowing mugs of ale are clinked together in a hearty toast. Vim sits before a feast, awkwardly raising his mug to join the cheers. A senior member announces their success, telling everyone to eat and drink heartily. The grand hall is filled with dozens of adventurers enjoying a massive banquet. Laughter and joyous conversation fill the air as the party members celebrate together. Vim, however, looks completely overwhelmed and out of place amidst the revelry. Suddenly, a bubbly and energetic female mage appears right in front of him. Vim is immediately flustered by her sudden and very close personal attention. She sits down right next to him, grabbing his hands and calling his name. She introduces herself as Monica, gushing that his performance was amazing and she's smitten. She asks if his enhancement on the ice spear required significant magical knowledge. She calls him studious, and he explains he once aspired to be a mage. She gets a feeling he is a complex person, which he nervously dismisses. Amidst the joyous chaos, Vim panics internally, wondering how to interact with new people. His quiet solitude is broken as a cheerful voice calls out his name. Gaiman, the scout leader, and his subordinate Bettina approach, eager to discuss his skills. Vim is starstruck, realizing he is speaking to the legendary scout leader himself. He nervously admits to being a huge fan who has read all of Gaiman's work. Gaiman playfully waves off the serious discussion, reminding them that it's a party. The boisterous tank commander, Mark, arrives, declaring that parties are for drinking. Vim calls out to Mark, lightly teasing him about his penchant for drinking. Mark cheerfully offers a mug of ale to a sighing Gaiman. The tank commander puts a friendly, heavy arm around Vim's shoulders. Mark praises Vim's enhancement, asking if he intentionally caused the miraculous reflection technique. Vim frantically denies it, insisting the feat was a product of the shield unit's own skill. Mark lets out a booming laugh, telling Vim he is destined for greatness. The shield unit's leader, Arbel, steps forward to address Vim directly. Arbel sincerely apologizes for his initial coldness, praising Vim's wonderful enhancement. Vim humbly dismisses the apology, blaming his own suspicious behavior at the time. His social anxiety takes over, and he worries aloud that he will spoil the mood. The entire table falls into an awkward silence at his strange, dark comment. A bead of sweat rolls down Vim's face as he realizes his social blunder. He slumps onto the table in shame, while a concerned Arbel asks if he's okay. Arbel smiles kindly, mentioning that Haydmary told him about Vim's passionate interests. Mark pulls Vim into a hug, telling him not to worry and asking if he'll join them. Vim blushes, looking flustered in the powerful adventurer's friendly embrace. He is deeply moved by their kindness, feeling unworthy but incredibly grateful. He reflects on how everyone is praising him, a feeling he is not used to. The lively, positive atmosphere is a world away from his time with Dragon's Fawn. He observes that the members of Night Dragonfly carry themselves with a certain dignity. For the first time, he allows himself to hope that he might have found a home. Haydmary appears, greeting him while tearing into a massive leg of roasted meat. She continues to eat voraciously as Vim returns her greeting. Mark welcomes her to the table, commenting on her characteristically hearty appetite. She complains that the meat is different from usual, demanding to know why. Haydmary leans in, teasing Vim about his newfound popularity and incredible performance. She asks if he's uncomfortable, correctly guessing his self-deprecating thoughts. She scolds him for downplaying his role, pointing out Chimera's intense interest in him. She insists their leader is completely captivated by him, a notion he tries to deny. Haydmary correctly deduces that Chimera is busy with post-expedition paperwork in her office. Hearing this, Vim decides it is a good time to make his exit and thanks her. Haydmary watches him go with a gentle, knowing smile on her face. The scene shifts to the imposing, ornate double doors of the leader's office. Inside, Chimera is hard at work, typing furiously at a complex machine. Her gauntlet fingers fly across the keys with practiced and precise speed. The machine prints out lines of text, documenting the expedition's successful events. She pauses, looking at the mountain of paperwork with a sense of dread. Overwhelmed, she leans back in her chair, stretching out her tired body. She reflects on the mission's success, acknowledging Vim's huge contribution. Her thoughts turn to the wonderful, intoxicating feeling of his power-up. She recalls the sensation as being completely natural, as if she had grown wings. She remembers the fight, feeling her own power boosted far beyond its normal limits. The memory of that exhilarating power brings a blissful, flushed expression to her face. An idea strikes her. She could use the memory of his buffs to guide her training. She realizes his power might be the key to finally breaking her own limits. A sudden knock at her office door interrupts her excited thoughts. She recognizes the visitor and invites Vim to enter her office. The grand door opens slowly as Vim hesitantly steps inside. Chimera is surprised to see him still at the party house, asking what he needs. He timidly presents a thick stack of documents he is holding. He explains that it is his personal report for the guild as a guest participant. She takes the report, utterly confused by his gesture and diligence. He explains that guild protocol for non-party participants required him to write it. She accepts his reasoning and thanks him for his thoroughness. She is stunned by the sheer size and detail of his report. She realizes with a jolt of relief that his work will save her hours. She recalls him mentioning his menial chore boy role in his former party. He explains his chores included running their entire back-end operation. She quietly repeats his word, everything, the full implication dawning on her. She misinterprets his actions as a brilliant opening move in a negotiation. She believes he is demonstrating his immense value to secure a good contract. She re-evaluates his past meekness as a calculated act of a master strategist. His seemingly weak moments are recast in a new, cunning light in her mind. A sly smile crosses her face as she decides to play his game and accept a challenge. Vim is completely oblivious to the intense mental chess match she believes is happening. She leans forward, making her powerful opening offer of a 500 milk bonus. He responds with a simple, confused question, not understanding the offer. She clarifies the bonus structure, sweetening the deal significantly if he joins. She misreads his confusion as him finding her impressive offer too low. Chimera thinks he is a master negotiator playing dumb to get a better deal. She steels herself, impressed by the outrageous opponent she believes she is facing. She resolves that she must secure him for her party, no matter the cost. She lays out her grand, final offer from across the room. She offers him a salary on par with her highest-ranking officers, plus bonuses. He looks completely stunned, unable to comprehend the astronomical sum being offered. She leans forward, awaiting his response to her incredible offer. He can only manage a weak, questioning sound, still in shock. She stands up, misinterpreting his shock as a demand for even more money. She asks what he earned before, vowing to double it on the spot. Vim nervously holds up 2 fingers to indicate the meager amount. He clarifies that her assumption of 200 is wrong, shocking her. She wildly guesses a much higher number, impressed by his supposed audacity. He quietly states his actual, pitiful salary, 20 milk a month. Her mind goes completely blank, unable to process his words. He confirms that the paltry sum was indeed his entire monthly wage. She erupts, shouting that his salary is less than a beggar's wage. She stares at him, desperately hoping he is making a terrible joke. His somber, downtrodden expression is all the answer she needs. She sees the sad truth in his eyes and is utterly horrified. He says he doesn't need a reward, that just being there is enough for him. Overwhelmed, he excuses himself and flees before Chimera can stop him. The door slams shut, leaving her standing alone in stunned silence. She struggles to reconcile the strategic genius with a broken boy. In her office, Chimera wonders why Vim was treated so poorly. She furrows her brow, admitting to herself that she doesn't understand. She questions what kind of party dragons Fong could possibly be. The scene shifts to the labyrinth's treacherous 35th floor. The silhouettes of dragons Fong stride forward with unearned confidence. Suddenly, a screeching horde of grotesque goblins bursts from the shadows. The adventurers are thrown into immediate, chaotic battle. They once believed themselves to be a perfect, unbeatable team. They were certain their path to A rank was an easy one. Kronos clutches his arm as a dark, bubbling poison spreads rapidly. He stumbles back, screaming for Nicola to heal him immediately. Panicked, he demands to know what is happening to him. He yells at Melis, asking if her defensive barrier is ready yet. Melis cries out that it's no good. Her magic won't hold. Kronos watches in disbelief, asking why the spell isn't finished. Melis unleashes a flame film, a desperate wall of fire. Kronos orders a full retreat, telling everyone to follow his lead. The corridor is left empty and silent after their panicked flight. The party regroups, catching their breath in a safer passage. Kronos impatiently asks Nicola if his wound is healed yet. Nicola apologizes, explaining that she is not feeling well. Kronos sighs, trying to compose himself after his angry outburst. He offers a curt apology to the group for his irritability. He then asks Nicola if she is okay, offering a word of thanks. He reassures her, telling her to calm down now that they are safe. He declares that even after the setback, they can still press on. But his bravado fades as he realizes the goblins are still coming. He turns to Melis, asking what's wrong. Melis nervously asks what exactly he means by a landmark. Kronos falls silent, his confidence beginning to completely crumble. He asks if anyone in the party knows where they are. Nicola looks down, unable to answer, sweating with anxiety. He turns to Sophia, his last hope, and asks if she knows. Sophia stammers, admitting that it's not what he thinks. Standing at the end of the passage, she states it's a dead end. The party stands frozen, trapped in the narrow stone corridor. Kronos' face fills with horror at their hopeless situation. They had turned their backs on the one thing they truly needed. The scene shifts to the quaint exterior of the dragon's Fong party house. From upstairs, a weak voice asks if she is able to eat. Another replies that it's impossible, but maybe she can have some water. Melis gently helps the bedridden Nicola take a sip of water. She watches with concern, asking if Nicola is all right. Nicola, looking pale and weak, thanks her friend for her help. Melis calls out as Kronos enters the bedroom. He stands in the doorway, holding a plate with a sliced apple. He explains to Nicola that Sophia peeled it for her. He offers a slice of the apple to his ailing party member. Sitting by her bed, he tells her to take her time and rest. He broods, muttering that he can't believe they struggled on the 35th floor. He declares it was his misjudgment, telling them to resent him. He looks up, touched, as Nicola and Melis rush to comfort him. A small, silent panel shows the moment of connection. The two women embrace their leader, telling him not to be so down. He says this isn't like them, and they should try again together. The girls look at him with teary, relieved expressions. They agree wholeheartedly, their spirits momentarily lifted. The scene transitions to a different room within the party house. The aftermath of their last labyrinth dive was a quiet, grim affair. Their strategy was flawed, relying on brute force and poor teamwork. Sophia unleashes a powerful shining sphere spell against the goblin. She urges the others to escape while they can, thanking them. Back at the house, Sophia sits exhausted, knowing they barely survived. She can't believe this is the B-rank party that defeated a floor lord. Her eyes narrow as she realizes the mountain of work left behind. The room is buried in a chaotic mess of scrolls, maps, and reports. She recalls Kronos telling her the previous guy was useless. He had asked her to sort the mess, offering to help if needed. As she reads, her expression shifts from annoyance to disbelief. The documents are reports, supply plans, budgets, and repair schedules. She realizes it includes maps and monster data, a complete thesis. She wonders if her predecessor truly did all of this alone. The thought of the useless man echoes in her mind. A new, troubling question forms. What was the leader, Kronos, doing? A title page shows dragons Fong posing around a throne. The scene shifts to a nightmare of clashing training swords. In the memory, Kronos easily disarms Vim during a sparring match. Kronos looks back at the fallen Vim with a cold expression. Vim stumbles backward, completely outmatched by the swordsman. The flat of the blade strikes him, and he cries out in pain. Vim sits on the ground as Kronos TSKS in annoyance above him. Kronos complains that Vim isn't even good enough for a training partner. Nicola's healing staff glows as she prepares to cast a spell. She heals Vim, coldly stating that she isn't doing it for his sake. She tells him to stand up and be useful to Kronos. Vim can only look down, ashamed, and apologize for his weakness. Melis impatiently tells him to get up now that he's healed. He rises to face the cold, disapproving stares of his entire party. Kronos sneers that there are plenty of replacements for him. He screams that Vim must be useful, or else he is fired. Vim's face contorts in shock and terror at the ultimatum. Kronos' mouth is a dark void as he screams the word again. He points a finger, ordering the terrified young man to get out. The word fired slashes across the panel, sealing his fate. The sound of his world shattering echoes in the darkness. Vim bolts upright in his bed at the night dragonfly mansion. He gasps for air, his body drenched in sweat from the nightmare. Outside his window, it's explained he still suffers from these dreams. A hand raises a spyglass, aiming it at Vim's window. On the roof, Mary watches over him, whispering how pitiful he is. On a rooftop, a lone figure keeps a watchful eye on the guest house below. Now that Vim has moved in, Mary finds her surveillance has become much easier. The physical distance is gone. She no longer has to worry about Dragon's fawn. Using her magic, she can now watch over him safely and securely. With a pleased chuckle, she begins to write in her journal. This is volume 105 of her meticulously kept Vim observation diary. As a new day dawns, a new routine for Vim begins. His morning now starts with a brisk run to warm up his body. Breakfast is a hearty meal of sausages, bacon, and fluffy steamed potatoes. In the afternoons, he studies magic and monster ecology in the Grand Library. Unlike his time at Dragon's Fawn, he finally has time for himself. At night, she watches his sleeping face, thinking how cute he is. She carefully records his weight, noting a small but healthy gain. She even overhears him mumble her name in a coincidental morning greeting. She is overjoyed to have him so close after all these years. But as another sun rises, something in his routine changes. In her room, Mary is suddenly jolted by a sense of alarm. She realizes with concern that Vim has deviated from his usual schedule. Her magical tracking map shows his current location with a glowing dot. He is in the courtyard, a place he doesn't normally go so early. She wonders if someone, perhaps Arbel, has called him out. She activates her magical listening device to discover the truth. To her shock, she hears a woman's voice at this early hour. In a vast, empty training yard, Vim stands opposite another figure. It is Chimera, who tells him it is time to begin their session. Mary sighs in relief. It's only Chimera, nothing to worry about. Chimera stands tall, announcing that Vim's enchantment is complete. Mary realizes Chimera is using Vim's enhancement for a unique training method. First, a weak buff is applied to her body to establish a baseline. Then, the buff is dispelled, and she tries to replicate the enhanced movements. Mary understands this is how Chimera intends to shatter her own limits. The ground cracks and splinters from the sheer force of Chimera's practice. She moves like a silver tempest, her form a blur of focused power. Her great sword carves through the air, leaving shimmering trails of displaced energy. Vim watches her every move with an intense, analytical gaze. Mary is astonished. Chimera is a monster, matching the buff speed in an hour. Chimera smiles, declaring the feeling of the enhancement to be exceptionally good. But Vim notices a subtle inefficiency, her arm swinging a little too much. He realizes he can adjust the friction in her joints to perfect her form. He decides to try a reverse enhancement to correct the flaw. The morning training session continues under the watchful sky. After his adjustment, Chimera's swings become visibly smoother and more powerful. Her form is now flawless, her immense power perfectly controlled and focused. Vim timidly asks her how the adjusted enchantment felt. From her perch, Mary watches the conclusion of the session. Chimera turns, her voice full of admiration as she says Vim's name. She strides forward and pulls him into a sudden, powerful embrace. Mary's eye goes wide with comical shock through her spyglass. She hears Chimera call him wonderful, and her mind begins to short-circuit. She sees, wondering what Chimera thinks she's doing to her Vim. Losing her balance, she tells herself to wait, to calm down. It is simply a hug out of gratitude. Nothing more, she hopes. Chimera smiles down at the flustered, blushing boy in her arms. Mary weakly tells herself it's nothing, but she is not convinced. Chimera decides this will be their new daily routine, and she will pay him. A satisfied, almost predatory smile crosses the leader's face. Later that afternoon, the boisterous Mark invites Vim out for drinks. Mary notes how Chimera is seamlessly integrating Vim into the party. As the city's clock tower chimes, evening falls over Firenburon. Mary keeps her magical tracking device clutched in her hand. She notes that Vim is going to a drinking party with the men. She tries to be reasonable, telling herself she must respect his privacy. But the thought of him in the entertainment district makes her worry. Vim follows his new comrades through the bustling cobblestone streets. The party's vice captain, Hans, raises a mug to welcome Vim. The tavern is filled with warmth and the sound of boisterous laughter. A smiling waitress serves a hearty meal to the celebrating men. From a nearby rooftop, a familiar observer keeps watch. Mary fumes, knowing this kind of place is full of pretty girls. Hans pulls Vim aside for a more private chat on the couch. Mary glares, convinced Vim is more than just looking. The tavern is too loud, making it difficult for her to eavesdrop. The table before them is laden with delicious-looking food and drink. Hans asks Vim about his past, noting he's from Mary's hometown. Vim confirms he is from Rylefeld, a long journey from a city. He becomes bashful when asked about his past ambitions. Hans laughs, saying he understands, as he also read heroic epics as a child. Another member mentions he heard from Monica that Vim wanted to be a mage. He teases that Vim seems to prefer fairy tales to dry magical theory. Vim tries to recall his favorite story about a transforming princess. Hans correctly guesses the ash-covered princess, and Vim eagerly confirms it. Vim is amazed, realizing he is having a proper, friendly conversation. He laughs freely, finally feeling like part of a true circle of friends. From a distance, a spyglass captures this happy, unguarded moment. The observer sees Vim's genuine, unrestrained smile for the first time. The view is from just outside the tavern's window. On her rooftop, Mary smiles softly, encouraging him from afar. The moon hangs in the sky as the night winds down. The men leave the tavern, warning each other not to get hung over. A shadowy hand reaches out, and a voice calls Vim's name. A separate group of men invites him to join them. They joke with Mark, asking if it's okay for a married man to come. One man whispers to another, suggesting they shouldn't invite Vim. He points out that the young lady is always watching him. Vim, flustered, insists he and Mary are only friends. The men comment on Mary's unusually protective behavior towards him. Vim wonders if she's only kind because she feels responsible for him. His friends are perplexed by his mention of responsibility. A sweet, menacing smile appears between the two confused men. Mary has materialized from the shadows, startling the veteran adventurers. As Vim and Mary walk home, a party member teases them about being on a date. Mary, looking drained, is asked where she's going with Vim. They run into Monica, who cheerfully asks Vim to walk her home. A voice says, "Of course," as the scene shifts to the night sky. Now that Vim has joined Night Dragonfly, things have begun to change. He tells Mary that so much has happened today. She replies that she knows. He reflects on the kindness of his new party, a warmth he never felt before. For the first time in his life, he truly feels like he belongs. He quickly dismisses the thought, but Mary reassures him he did well. He asks what she means, and she reminds him that she's always watching. With a bright smile, she declares she knows everything about him, hoping to be a positive influence. Meanwhile, in her grand office, Chimera receives an important visitor. The man introduces himself as Dominic, an investigator from the Adventurers Guild. Chimera, seated at her desk, coolly asks him to state his business. He explains that he is conducting a secret investigation and requires her help. Leaning forward with interest, she asks him what the investigation is about. Dominic reveals that he is looking into Vim Shutterhouse, formerly of Dragon's Fawn. Chimera's eyes narrow, her expression hardening at the mention of Vim's past. The chapter page shows a determined Chimera, ready to uncover the truth. The afternoon light streams into her office, illuminating a globe on its stand. Chimera scoffs at Dominic's initial theory, telling him it's ridiculous. She admits that what he is suggesting is almost impossible to believe. The notion that Vim could have defeated the 97th floor lord alone is absurd. Dominic counters that the only wounds on the beast were from Vim's skill, Yamakatana. He adds that Vim's own flawless report on the matter prevented an earlier investigation. Chimera acknowledges that investigating these labyrinth secrets is Dominic's duty. The investigator insists that Dragon's Fong's promotion cannot stand on a lie. He notes that the other three members couldn't even damage the boss, yet are hailed as heroes. He states that Vim is the only one who could have landed the fatal blow. Dominic tells Chimera that while Vim's reports are perfect, one thing bothers him. He reveals that Vim deliberately wrote them to downplay his own achievements. Chimera listens silently, her mind racing as she processes this information. She concedes that such self-effacing behavior is very much in character for Vim. Though she finds it hard to believe, she agrees to cooperate with the investigation. She admits that she, too, wants to understand the full extent of his combat abilities. The full might of night, Dragonfly marches through the grand halls of the labyrinth. Vim walks among them, now an accepted and integrated member of the party. He uses a small, spinning magical device to scan the path ahead for danger. He reports a potential pitfall trap 50 units ahead and to the left. Chimera immediately accepts his report and orders the party to change course. Vim is relieved that his warning was communicated and trusted without question. A diagram shows his role. Move between the vanguard and rear guard, applying buffs. He is still amazed that Knight Dragonfly trusts and values someone like him so much. He feels a deep gratitude that they have found a use for his skills. A party member calls out to Vim, telling him that Chimera wants to see him. Chimera asks him to demonstrate his combat ability, much to his surprise. She clarifies that she wants to see him fight completely on his own. She needs to gauge his solo fighting skill. He protests that he is weak. She explains that for their next large-scale dive, she must know his true strength. Knowing he can fight alone would be a great asset, a fact he understands. Gaiman, the scout leader, reports a single large golem 140 units away. Chimera muses that it's a tough opponent, suggesting Haydmary could assist him. Clenching his fist, Vim agrees to try his best, impressing Chimera with his resolve. The scene is set in a vast, pillar-lined chamber deep within the labyrinth. Vim stands alone before the entrance, taking a deep, steadying breath. He exhales slowly, sweat beading on his brow as he focuses his mind. His eyes snap open, his expression now one of intense, unwavering concentration. He faces the towering, ancient stone golem, a lone figure against a giant. Haydmary suddenly appears, startling him by grabbing his arm from behind. She cheerfully tells him to go for it, while he worries he might die. She confidently pats his back, reassuring him that such a thing won't happen. Taking one last breath, Vim steels himself for the coming battle. His hand closes around the hilt of his small, curved knife. He draws his weapon, his face a mask of fear and grim determination. The rest of night, Dragonfly watches from a safe distance, ready to intervene. Hans expresses his concern to Chimera that a golem is a bad matchup for an enchanter. He notes that it's an enemy even a B-rank party would struggle with. Chimera explains that Vim's special enchantment method is what makes him different. She describes his technique of layering dozens of micro-enhancements on muscles and bones. Hans asks if she truly believes Vim can win. She replies that it is entirely possible. Hans looks on with newfound respect, sorry he ever doubted the boy. The golem raises its massive stone fist, preparing to crush its tiny opponent. An explanation box states that adventurers gain their class through a special ceremony. This ritual alters their bodies, granting them 10 times the strength of a normal person. However, the enchanter class receives only a minor strength boost, and their skills are unwieldy. Applying a self-enhancement makes them only marginally stronger than other combat classes. This is why the class is unpopular. Its only advantage is a slight edge right after acquisition. The golem's colossal fist smashes down with incredible speed and force. Vim activates his skill, Instantaneous Enhancement 2x, a magic circle flaring on his hand. He dodges in a blur of motion as the fist pulverizes the ground. A key advantage of self-enchanting is the ability to act instantly. Unlike buffing others, who must consent, he can apply enhancements to himself at will. This allows for fine, real-time adjustments and even multiple buffs on the same area. A diagram shows the specific micro-buffs he applies to his deltoids, triceps, and femur. He knows his low mana reserves demand a short, decisive battle. He unleashes a flurry of attacks against the golem's tough, stone exterior. Chimera and Hans watch in stunned silence, shocked by his incredible speed. He leaps onto one of the massive pillars that line the chamber. He knows he can fight, but the powerful buffs cause a painful backlash. He notices a piece of the pillar crumbling beside him. He realizes with a jolt of surprise that the expected pain isn't coming. He wonders why, questioning if he has somehow grown stronger. A greedy, exhilarating thought crosses his mind. Perhaps he can push even further. His eye widens with a manic glint as he decides to go all out. He invokes a new skill, his magic circle glowing. Instantaneous enhancement 3x. Moving with blinding speed, he drives his knife into the golem's torso. He shatters one of the golem's massive stone arms with a powerful strike. He lands a rapid series of blows, sending a shower of stone fragments flying. He leaps onto the monster's back, continuing his relentless assault from above. With a final, determined gaze, he prepares to strike the golem's glowing core. Within the golem's shattered chest, its glowing core lay exposed. Vim's eyes zeroed in on the target, his mind screaming, "Found it!" The creature's massive stone fist swung down with world-shattering force. The members of Night Dragonfly watched the confrontation from a safe distance. Hail Mary observed the battle with a small, knowing smile on her face. Vim walked calmly past the now motionless golem, his knife held loosely. With a deep groan, the ancient stone construct crumbled into a pile of rubble. The assembled elite adventurers were stunned into a profound, collective silence. Chimera asked Hans if he saw the fight. He admitted it was over instantly. The other members murmured in confusion, wondering if the battle was already over. Hans declared that in terms of speed, Vim was among the city's very best. Vim turned back, sheepishly asking if his judgment had taken too long. The SHIELD unit frantically assured him that his performance was absolutely amazing. The rest of the party could only stare, still processing the shocking display. Chimera called out to Hail Mary, who answered her leader's summons. The party leader asked, her voice low and serious, who this boy truly was. Hail Mary proudly identified him as Vim the Enchanter, a boy from her hometown. She added with a brilliant, confident smile that he was incredibly strong. High on adrenaline, Vim ran excitedly back towards Hail Mary and the others. He urged her to listen, explaining he felt good and decided to push himself. With a massive grin, he exclaimed that his body just moved on its own. Chimera observed his glee, thinking he was like a novice after his first kill. She struggled to reconcile this with his rumored power and crippling self-doubt. Given his current state, she was certain he wasn't intentionally hiding his power. She could not understand why he was so unbalanced, so full of contradictions. Hail Mary placed a calming hand on his shoulder, telling him not to get overexcited. Vim's manic energy suddenly faded as he took in the scene around him. He stammered, asking if he said something strange, his excitement just exploding. Covering his face, he groaned in embarrassment while Hail Mary simply smiled. She reassured him, saying his solo takedown of the golem was magnificent. He humbly replied that it was only possible because everyone was there for him. He patted his shoulder, bracing for the familiar aches of overexerting himself. He paused, confused, realizing he felt no pain or fatigue at all. A close-up on his eye showed his shock. The usual backlash wasn't coming. He was stunned, wondering how he felt fine after a 3x enhancement. Looking at his hand, he realized he still had a surprising amount of mana left. He looked around the stone cavern, a profound thought beginning to form. He wondered if he had grown stronger, just as the SHIELD unit swarmed him. They hoisted him up, cheering his victory as Mary watched with a smile. She thought to herself that the world was finally noticing his true strength. The early morning light fell upon the night Dragonfly headquarters. Inside the armory, the young mage Monica peered out a window. Another adventurer approached, asking her what she was looking at so intently. Monica pointed excitedly down into the training courtyard below. Through the window, Vim could be seen training with Chimera and Arbel. It was a spectacle of power, Chimera and Arbel sparring with incredible ferocity. The other adventurer noted this had become their routine every morning lately. Monica complained that their training was getting in the way of her view. Her comrade called her noisy, to which she cheekily stuck out her tongue. In the courtyard, Chimera's expression was one of intense, focused concentration. Vim stood between them, his own face a mask of quiet, serious resolve. Chimera's lips curved into a predatory smile as she clenched her gauntlet. The chapter title page read, Chapter 9, Influence. Soft, silent snowflakes began to fall upon the vast training courtyard. The training session concluded, leaving Arbel panting on one knee. Chimera, her breathing steady, declared that was enough training for the day. Arbel protested, his voice full of energy, insisting he could still go on. She reminded him of the large-scale survey the next day, telling him to rest. They turned to Vim, who nervously asked about the final adjustments to his buffs. In perfect unison, Chimera and Arbel roared that the enhancement was wonderful. They gushed with praise, marveling at his skill and how much they had improved. Vim, completely flustered, insisted that he was the one learning from them. Chimera thanked him for his dedication, especially as a provisional member. She clenched her armored fist, her voice tight with anticipation for a real battle. Her face was alight with a fierce, almost terrifying grin of exhilaration. Vim felt a deep sense of gratitude for their constant, uplifting encouragement. Chimera suggested they all rest up for the mission ahead. She hesitated for a moment, an idea forming in her mind. She then invited them both to get a meal together. Arbel was ecstatic, suggesting a great steakhouse he knew. Chimera turned to Vim, asking if he had other plans. He explained that he had a prior commitment, a study session with the scouts. Chimera understood, telling him to prioritize his preparations for the mission. With a quick apology, Vim departed, leaving his two mentors behind. Arbel looked on with disappointment, noting that they had been shot down. He then hopefully asked Chimera if she wanted to train a little more. The party leader was silent for a moment, considering his request. She agreed to just a little more, and Arbel thanked her enthusiastically. Two lone birds soared through a vast, cloud-strewn sky. Chimera walked through the hall, thinking she had overdone it and needed a potion. She passed the library and glanced inside, seeing Vim with the scout unit. They were deep in discussion, with Vim explaining the limits of his own mana. Chimera mused that his presence was having a wonderful effect on the party. She knew anyone who worked with him felt the depth of his honed skills. His ambition, she thought, would surely ignite a fire in the other members. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that the boy was undeniably creepy. Down the hall, she overheard two other members gossiping about the newcomer. One of them called out to the other, getting his attention. He apologized for speaking ill of a comrade, but admitted he understood the sentiment. They found it hard to accept the mysterious enchanter Mary had brought in. Chimera knew it was true. Vim still hadn't fully integrated into their ranks. She worried that this separation might have a negative influence on the party. She knew Night Dragonfly was an exclusive party, a place for the absolute elite. A boy who had been fired from another party would never normally get a trial. But she believed that tomorrow, everyone would witness his skills and understand. Her thoughts were interrupted as a subordinate called out her name. He informed her that a visitor from the Adventurers Guild had arrived. The scene shifted to the ornate, imposing double doors of her private office. Inside, the investigator Dominic flipped through a document in his hands. He looked up at Chimera, asking her to confirm the solo golem subjugation. In her stately office, Dominic praises Chimera for the magnificent report. He then asks for her professional opinion on a critical matter. Can Vim truly defeat a floor lord all by himself? Chimera clasps her armored hands, deep in thought for a moment. With unwavering certainty, she looks up and declares it impossible. Dominic seems taken aback by her firm and immediate denial. She explains that while his speed is top tier, his power is lacking. Chimera flashes back to Vim's incredible movements against the golem. She assesses his overall combat ability as equal to an officer candidate. The investigator listens intently, processing her expert analysis of the boy. Chimera's eye narrows as she adds a crucial caveat to her judgment. If Vim is hiding some other power, then it's a different story entirely. Dominic's expression becomes serious, realizing the investigation is not over. He rises, mentioning the large-scale survey of the 98th floor tomorrow. He asks her to contact him the moment she uncovers what Vim is hiding. Chimera agrees, adding the grim condition, if he manages to stay alive. The scene shifts to the exterior of a warm, inviting tavern at night. Inside, plates of hearty sausages and roasted meats are being enjoyed. Mary enthusiastically takes a large bite out of a bird leg. The waitress, Greta, happily remarks that Vim has stopped having nightmares. Mary, sitting at the bar, simply confirms this is the case. Greta's cheerful expression fades as she listens to the tavern owner. Mary pauses her meal, her face suddenly filled with concern. The owner asks Greta why she suddenly looks so crestfallen. He leans in conspiratorially, his voice low and his face worried. He reveals that a party of regulars vanished on the 98th floor last week. Mary's face hardens as she listens to the grim news. A flashback shows a group of adventurers, acknowledging the risks they face. The owner states that for adventurers, death is always a close companion. Greta looks worried, admitting that she understands but still fears for them. Mary says it's a harsh reality they can only accept. Her face is a mask of pained resignation to their dangerous lives. She suddenly slams the table, frustrated by the somber mood. Greta is surprised, asking if Mary really wants to have a drink. Mary declares they will drink, a toast to the next leader of Night Dragonfly. Greta happily brings her a massive, overflowing mug of ale. Mary is flabbergasted by the ridiculously oversized mug. The owner says the price is the same, just one milk. Mary accuses them of ripping her off as the staff teases her. The owner smiles warmly, glad to see Greta laughing again. Greta calls her Su-chan, and Mary angrily denies being a stalker. Greta reminds her of the dangerous mission to the 98th floor tomorrow. She pleads with Mary to come back safely and to bring Vim too. Mary listens with a grumpy, slightly embarrassed expression. She scoffs, declaring that of course she will be back. Later, she reflects on how a friend can be gone in an instant. The scene transitions to the dark, oppressive depths of the labyrinth. The doomed party realizes their recklessness has led them too deep. The leader screams at his comrades, ordering a desperate, panicked retreat. A member is violently dragged beneath the dark, churning water. The remaining adventurers flee in terror through the watery passage. Another man is grabbed from behind, letting out a choked cry. A survivor watches in horror as his friends are killed one by one. He stands alone, trembling as an unseen horror approaches. The leader, facing his end, asks his daughter, Ilya, for forgiveness. He grips his sword, preparing for one final, hopeless stand. He roars a challenge at the monstrous fanged maw before him. In his final moment, his eye widens in absolute shock. The next morning, the sun shines brightly on the city of Firenburon. Armored boots march with purpose down the cobblestone streets. The proud banner of night, Dragonfly, flutters in the morning breeze. A massive procession of adventurers parades through streets lined with cheering citizens. The adoring crowd calls out the names of their heroes, Chimera and Hans. Vim, walking in the procession, looks overwhelmed by the spectacle. He marvels that a labyrinth dive for Night Dragonfly is like a festival, He feels the eyes of the crowd on him, wondering what they think. His own eyes widen in shock as he spots a familiar group. He realizes people are still calling him the shame of Dragon's Fawn. His former party members, Kronos, Melis, and Nicola, glare at him. Vim shakes his head, forcing himself to move on from his past. He turns his back on them, resolving to focus on his new party. The crowd continues to cheer wildly for the heroes marching past. A citizen excitedly tells his friend all 122 members are going. His friend grins, filled with anticipation for the results they will bring back. Another man shares a rumor about Night Dragonfly's provisional member. He reveals it's the enchanter who was fired from Dragon's Fawn. He adds that the rumor says this enchanter is actually incredibly talented. His friend asks for the enchanter's name, but he cannot remember it. The chapter title appears, Chapter 10, Large-Scale Labyrinth Dive. The narration explains the labyrinth is an unreasonable place, full of traps. Chimera declares that overcoming such risks is the honor of an adventurer. The party stands assembled in the grand, cathedral-like hall of the guild. Chimera tells them this mission to the 98th floor is a true life-or-death struggle. She commands them to be prepared and to steel their resolve. Vim stands among the armored warriors, looking small and nervous. Chimera roars that they will return triumphant, without losing a single member. The entire party raises their weapons in a deafening, unified battle cry. Vim gets swept up in the energy, raising a hesitant fist in a cheer. Haid Mary teases him, knowing he's not comfortable with such displays. Vim looks down, embarrassed by her accurate observation. Haid Mary watches him with a knowing, slightly amused expression. They descend to the teleportation gate in the guild's cavernous basement. They are instantly transported to the dark, jagged chasm of the 98th floor. The assembled party stands at the edge, gazing into the oppressive darkness. The inky blackness of the deep fissure seems to stretch into infinity. Vim looks up, noting the ceiling is so high it feels like open sky. He thinks about his immense responsibilities for the mission ahead. He knows the entire party's progress depends on his performance. Arbel approaches with a kind smile, asking if he is nervous. The pressure suddenly overwhelms him, and he collapses, vomiting on the ground. Overwhelmed by stress, Vim apologizes to Arbel, insisting he is okay. He tells himself to calm down, mentally dividing the battlefield to focus. Vim insists he has never once failed in training, despite his obvious distress. Arbel tells Vim that he's counting on him, so Vim should count on them. With a brilliant smile, Arbel promises to protect Vim, even from Floorlord. Vim is left stunned and blushing, unable to do more than stammer Arbel's name. Now flustered himself, Arbel apologizes for his overly passionate declaration. Arbel is embarrassed by Vim's coolness, while Vim thinks of their shared training. Vim wonders if he can finally call Arbel a friend, considering asking him for a meal. He shyly calls out to Arbel, who has started to walk away with the others. But Vim fumbles his words, unable to ask his new friend to eat with him. A strange, unnatural chittering sound suddenly echoes through the cavern. Vim looks up in terror, his eyes wide with shock and recognition. Arbel asks what's wrong, but Vim cuts himself off before mentioning the sound. He thinks grimly that he hears it every time he enters the labyrinth. Composing himself, Vim agrees to form a two-person vanguard with Arbel. With a small, determined smile, Vim agrees to the dangerous task ahead. They proceed toward a dark, foreboding cave entrance surrounded by butterflies. The party marches through a rocky pass, wary of the strange local monsters. As predicted, a Hydra-type monster is spotted, and Vim moves ahead to investigate. He analyzes a drop of water, deducing a Hydra would need a large water source. The damp cavern walls confirm his theory. A water vein must be nearby. The area is teeming with strange, new semi-aquatic monsters of all kinds. Vim directs the scouting operation, sending Bettina left while he scans the right. He warns the others of a slight downward slope, urging caution for the mappers. The other scouts, Bettina and Gaiman, confirm his findings are accurate. Arbel watches in awe as Vim works on a complex, magical map interface. Vim's fingers fly across the display, making rapid calculations and marking threats. Arbel marvels at Vim's work ethic, realizing he's doing far more than asked. Vim remains intensely focused, his mind processing a staggering amount of data. The SHIELD leader realizes a map with this much detail will be priceless. Vim mutters to himself, stressed by the workload and considering his next move. The mental and physical exertion becomes too much, and he collapses to the ground. A gauntlet hand startles him, offering a much-needed water flask. Arbel kneels beside him, telling him to rehydrate as Vim apologizes for his zeal. Their moment is interrupted by Hans, who summons them to a leadership meeting. Hans asks for Vim's assessment, and he confirms a large chamber lies ahead. The party stands at the edge of a great chasm, ready to proceed. The leadership gathers around a magical projection of Vim's developing map. They confirm the chamber and the presence of a lake or river nearby. Hans asks Vim if he can determine the water's quality for resupply. Vim confirms it's safe, citing butterflies that only live near clean water. Chimera agrees with the assessment and asks if there is any other information. Vim fidgets nervously, hesitating to speak his mind before the party's elite. Arbel notices his friend's hesitation and encourages him to speak up. Chimera asks what it is, telling him to voice his concerns, no matter how small. Vim explains his most worrying discovery, a subtle but persistent upward slope. Chimera listens intently, her expression becoming serious as she understands. A downward slope would be natural, but this suggests a unique, terrifying trap. She considers the possibility of a rock slide designed to seal their exit. Vim lays out the worst-case scenario. If the slope continues and water floods in, they would be completely trapped and left at the mercy of the floor lord. The atmosphere grows tense as the leadership considers this horrifying possibility. Vim immediately apologizes, telling them not to worry about his grim theory. Chimera's expression darkens as she tells him he's making everyone anxious. But she clarifies that's not what she meant, chiding his lack of confidence. She notes his growth, but tells him not to be overly hesitant to speak. A small smile appears as she tells him she likes seeing him live as he pleases. Visibly moved by her trust, Vim can only stammer his heartfelt thanks. The party proceeds, their progress smooth and unhindered by major threats. They soon discover a massive vein of priceless magic crystals, ensuring a profit. But Vim's unease grows. Things are going too well, and he suspects a trap. Despite their success, the entire party feels the same nagging suspicion. Chimera acknowledges the risk, but declares that turning back is not an option. Gaiman agrees, stating that Night Dragonfly does not retreat from the unknown. The others concur, knowing a retreat would encourage the use of dangerous dark maps. Vim listens, his expression somber as he thinks of Firebaron's grim underworld. Dark maps are created by adventurers who risk, and often lose, their lives. These illicit charts are highly illegal, but are traded at exorbitant prices. Chimera explains that their failure would cause a surge in demand for these maps. With hardened eyes, she declares that such a future must be prevented. Standing before her party, she announces the formation of an elite advance team. Vim understands this is the best way to minimize risk for the main party. He wonders which of Night Dragonfly's elite will be chosen for the mission. Chimera announces that the dangerous scouting mission will be done by 6 members. She names Hans, the stoic swordsman and vice-captain of the party. Next is Arbel, the indomitable leader of the SHIELD unit. Monica, the brilliant vice-leader of the mage unit, is also chosen. Bettina, the quiet and competent vice-leader of the scout unit, is selected. Haidmary, the prodigious sage and future leader, joins the team. Finally, she names Vim, the enchanter and still only a provisional member. Vim's face contorts in absolute shock and utter disbelief. Haidmary congratulates him as he panics about being included with such elites. He screams internally, crushed by the immense responsibility placed upon him. Arbel reassures him that everyone is counting on him, and Vim nervously accepts. Overwhelmed with anxiety, Vim wonders how he will ever manage. Hans feels the surge of power, declaring he has been enchanted. Arbel, too, feels the buff, a confident smile on his face. Mary looks on, pleased with the result of Vim's work. Monica and Bettina are visibly surprised by the power of the enchantment. The entire elite squad marvels at the blanket enhancement Vim has cast. Monica hops in the air, exclaiming how wonderfully light her body feels. Vim explains he applied a running buff and will add more for combat. The bubbly mage rushes to Vim, gushing about how she's always wanted his buff. Mary instantly shoves Monica away, yelling at her for getting too close. Monica pouts, innocently asking her friend Marie-chan what is wrong. Mary furiously tells her not to be so familiar with her nickname. Confused, Monica asks if the two of them are not friends. Mary's rage intensifies as she glares at the well-endowed mage. She erupts, declaring they are enemies and calling Monica a cowwoman. Hans tells the newly formed team that though it is their first time together, he has complete faith in their abilities. The quiet scout, Bettina, has already plotted their path, she informs them. Their strategy, Bettina explains, is to avoid combat and move as quickly as possible. Hans turns to their newest member, telling Vim he is counting on his scouting support if he has the energy. Overwhelmed by the immense responsibility, Vim can only stammer that he will do his very best. The pressure becomes too much, and Vim retches onto the ground as the concerned tank, Arbel, rushes over with a water flask. Hans watches with a knowing smile, remarking that Vim is perfectly suited to be their guide on this mission. The small, six-person team ventures into a dark, foreboding passage carved into the labyrinth's rock. Moving as a single blur, the adventurers race through the treacherous terrain with an impossible speed. A small, frog-like monster emerges from the shadows, spitting a glob of acidic saliva at the speeding party. Thanks to Vim's enhancement, they are far too fast, easily evading the creature's clumsy attack. The monster's projectile splashes harmlessly against the stone wall, far behind the already distant adventurers. Hans feels the surge of power coursing through him, realizing with awe that this is Vim's fabled enhancement. He marvels at how light and tireless he feels, certain they will reach the great cavern ahead in no time. Bettina calls out a warning, asking if the anomaly ahead is a monster before ordering a sharp turn to the right. It's a trap, she clarifies, her eyes glued to the complex data stream on her magical sensor screen. Hans is deeply impressed, recognizing this as the advanced scouting technique that Vim had taught the scout unit. In a brief flashback, Bettina recalls Vim handing her a massive stack of documents with a humble smile. She remembers her shock, realizing the documents were practically a thesis on the statistical tendencies of traps. Her thoughts are broken by a new alert. She confirms a monster is ahead, and this time, combat is unavoidable. From the darkness between two massive rock formations, a colossal, white serpent-like monster emerges. Unflinching, Hans draws one of his twin swords, his expression calm and focused as he prepares to engage the beast. With a burst of speed, he charges forward, closing the distance to the massive, rock-scaled creature. His twin blades clang uselessly off the monster's impenetrable hide, the impact sending sparks flying. Tough, aren't you? Hans grunts, his powerful attack having had no effect whatsoever on the beast. Enraged by the assault, the serpent lets out a guttural, terrifying shriek that echoes through the cavern. Seeing her comrades struggle, the mage Monica steps forward, confidently declaring that she will handle it. She begins to gather her power, a swirling orb of dark energy materializing at the head of her staff. Her expression is one of pure concentration, her star-shaped hair clips glinting in the magical light. Just as she prepares to attack, Vim gets an idea, his sudden exclamation catching her attention. He urgently shouts for her to maintain her current power output and not to add any more. She agrees, and Vim casts his spell, creating a swarm of sprites as she declares her consent. A host of small, mischievous-looking energy sprites materializes, chittering with contained power. The narration confirms that Mage Monica has accepted the enchantment from Enchanter Vim. The spectral sprites begin to swarm and attach themselves to Monica's lightning bullet spell. Vim makes a series of minute adjustments, correcting for speed decay and optimizing the spell's range. "Enchanted!" he cries, announcing the completion of the buff as magical energy erupts around Monica. "Here I go," she says, her eyes narrowed in focus as she prepares to unleash her lightning bullet. She points, and a torrent of magical projectiles streaks across the cavern towards the serpent. Guided by Vim's sprites, every single bolt curves through the air, striking the monster with unerring accuracy. The serpent rears back, its tough hide pierced and smoking as it lets out a shriek of pure agony. Monica stares in utter disbelief, amazed that every single one of her shots landed as a direct hit. Before the beast can recover, Hans calls out to Vim, asking if he can enchant his weapons as well. Monica is still amazed as Vim explains that he simply made a few adjustments to her spell. Hans's eye narrows with resolve as he formally consents to Vim's enchantment. Vim focuses, weaving a buff to increase the sword's hardness and strength without altering their weight. Hans's twin blades begin to glow, humming with a faint, deadly energy that crackles in the air. The sound of contained power echoes through the cavern as the enhancement settles into the steel. "I'll take it from here," Hans says, turning his attention back to the wounded but still dangerous monster. He dashes forward, becoming a blur of motion as he closes the distance to the beast in an instant. Leaping into the air, he unleashes his ultimate technique, the devastating 1,000-cross slash. The sheer ease of the attack leaves him with a look of comical shock on his face. The massive serpent collapses, its body reduced to ribbons by the impossibly sharp blades. As the rest of the squad cheers in victory, Hans can only stand there, panting and processing what just happened. He whispers that it felt like cutting through cake, finally understanding the true nature of Vim's power. Vim smiles, satisfied, thinking he now understands why Chimera is so fond of his enhancements. The celebration is cut short as Bettina's sensor flares up, a large exclamation point on the screen. She screams a frantic warning, shouting that there is another monster directly above them. A grotesque, flying fish-like creature with a massive, tooth-filled maw dives from the cavern ceiling. Without hesitation, Vim activates a magic circle, casting a 3x instantaneous enhancement on himself. He launches himself into the air like a rocket, flying up to meet the diving beast head-on. In a breathtaking display of agility, he slices the massive creature cleanly in half with his small knife. He lands gracefully on the cavern floor as the two halves of the monster fall with a wet thud. His comrades erupt in praise, calling his actions magnificent and his skill superb. Vim, embarrassed by the attention, shyly insists that it was just a bit of small fry hunting. Hans inspects the corpse, questioning if it's truly small fry, as it seems to be an entirely new species. As he looks, his eye catches the glint of something metallic inside the monster's maw. He reaches in and retrieves the object, pulling it free from the creature's sharp teeth. It is a locket, which he opens to reveal the portrait of a smiling female adventurer. His face falls as he somberly concludes that it belongs to the adventurers who delved here before them. He tells the party they have no time to make a grave, but they will offer a silent prayer for the fallen. As the others talk, Vim stands back, observing the easy camaraderie between the elite adventurers. He reflects on their seamless teamwork, both in movement and in combat, a perfectly cohesive unit. As they stand in silent prayer, he thinks that things were never this smooth or coordinated with Dragon's Fawn. With his hands clasped, he closes his eyes, feeling a profound sense of belonging to this amazing party. Their duty done, the squad presses onward, venturing deeper into the dark, unexplored labyrinth. They race through a narrow canyon, their enhanced speed allowing them to cover ground at a breathtaking pace. At last, they reach the end of the passage, the darkness giving way to a vast, open space. Vim looks out over a massive, barren cavern, its ceiling so high it resembles a starry night sky. The Forlorn Hope squad emerges from the canyon, their forms silhouetted against the grand vista. The cavern opens up to the shore of a vast and placid subterranean lake, its dark waters stretching to the horizon. The team gathers by the water's edge, their mission to find a safe area now complete. Hans kneels, confirming that the cavern and the water quality are just as Vim's analysis had predicted. He turns to Vim, declaring their mission a great success, having secured a relay point on the 98th floor. Arbel, his face beaming with pride, claps Vim on the shoulder, congratulating him on his major achievement. Vim, ever humble, waves his hands dismissively, insisting that he was only providing minor support. Exasperated, Haydmary scolds him, telling him to just accept the compliment and stop putting himself down. He stammers that he isn't, his deep-seated self-loathing making him feel unworthy of their praise. Haydmary erupts in a comical, furious rant, declaring that she's abusing her authority just for him. Vim stands silently for a moment, his head bowed as he quietly acknowledges that she is right. Arbel approaches him, calling his name with a warm, genuine smile that breaks the tension. Vim looks up, startled and a little flustered by the friendly tank's kind demeanor. Arbel places a firm, reassuring hand on Vim's shoulder, and Vim quietly thanks him for his kindness. Haydmary watches the burgeoning friendship with a soft, pleased smile on her face. Soon after, the main force of Night Dragonfly arrives, joining their advance team in the massive cavern. Chimera assesses the area, noting that a cavern of this size is safe from any potential water traps. She turns to the advance squad, calling their work a great achievement and thanking them for their efforts. The vast cavern is officially established as Night Dragonfly's base camp for their overnight stay. While the rest of the party settles in, Vim sits alone, unable to rest as he pores over his maps. Haydmary calls out for him to get some sleep, but he replies that something is still bothering him. Vim's finger traces across a holographic display, analyzing complex data with gears and graphs. He studies the glowing screen, noting how the terrain slopes down before rising again. The party has made camp in a vast, desolate underground cavern with a high ceiling. Vim imagines a worst-case scenario where a flood traps them by cutting off their retreat. He worries intently, considering the possibility of a trap unlike any they've encountered before. His eyes narrow. He understands the escape routes, but a water trap would be disastrous. With a weary sigh, Vim tries to quiet his own constant, nagging anxieties. He settles into his bedroll, telling himself to sleep, though his worries feel endless. He concludes that it's pointless to worry, as a massive flood is an impossible scenario. Against a black void, the impossible begins as rain starts to fall, creating ripples. A single drop of water lands on Vim's cheek as he rests his eyes. He sits up, looking out at the impossible rain now falling across the entire cavern. The sound of the downpour intensifies, growing from a patter to a torrential storm. Vim's face is a mask of pure shock as he realizes what is happening. Gasping rain? He screams for everyone to wake up, shouting that it's raining inside the labyrinth. A party member's eye widens in shock, unable to comprehend the foolishness of their situation. The title page for Assault shows the party scattered as the deluge begins in earnest. Panic erupts as adventurers shout, asking why it's raining and if it's a trap. Vim is on his knees, overwhelmed and terrified, unable to understand what is happening. Chimera assesses the situation, noting that the heavy rain is dangerously reducing visibility. The ground is quickly submerged, the downpour turning into a churning, rising flood. Two scouts stand guard before a passage that has become a raging, impassable river. One of the scouts stares in horror, unable to believe his eyes. The other screams that they can't go back this way, asking what they are supposed to do. A scout reports to Chimera that the southern passage is submerged. She orders everyone to calm down. Chimera declares that retreat is impossible. They're trapped in a Floor Lord's ambush. Her face alight with resolve, she roars that this is the moment that tests Night Dragonfly's true worth. The party members look on, their fear slowly being replaced by a grim determination. Forged by their leader's words, the entire party lets out a unified, deafening battle cry. Vim is awestruck, telling Haidmary how their fear has instantly transformed into resolve. Haidmary tells Vim they need to prepare themselves as well, and he firmly agrees. The sound of a new report cuts through the din of the storm. Scouts confirm that the east, west, and south passages are clear of any enemies. Bettina stares at her sensor screen, her expression turning to one of dawning horror. She screams a warning that something is approaching from the northern passage. Her eye widens in terror. She can't get a clear image, but it may be the Floor Lord. Chimera orders the rear guard to prepare to fire after Vim applies his enhancement. The rear guard mages, their faces set with determination, ready their spells. A complex, glowing magic circle materializes around a priest's staff. Another circle appears, this one inscribed with the symbol for lightning. A third magic circle combines multiple elements, humming with contained power. With intense focus, Vim calls out incantations to harden and shake their combined spell. A massive, serpentine dragon composed of pure ice and lightning forms from their magic. From the darkness of the northern passage, a single, pale tentacle slithers into view. Two immense, writhing tentacles emerge, shocking the party with their sheer size. A warrior reports that the enemy is huge. Chimera orders them to increase the attack's power. The mages respond instantly, pouring more energy into their combined spell. Vim makes final adjustments for the environment, declaring the enchantment is complete. Haidmary lets out a determined shout, ready to unleash the attack. A male mage roars with effort, his face contorted. The rear guard chants in unison, unleashing their combined ice lightning spear. The faces of the mages are a mask of focus as they channel their power. The colossal spear of energy, shaped like a drill, screams towards the enemy. The attack strikes the emerging tentacles head-on. The passage is engulfed in a massive explosion of elemental energy. The party watches as the smoke from the powerful blast begins to clear. Bettina reports that the target is gone, but realizes with horror that the attack missed. From the churning water below, a countless swarm of new tentacles begins to emerge. The new wave of appendages surges towards the party at incredible speed. The shield unit roars as they rush to the front line to intercept the attack. Vim instantly shouts that their enhancement is complete, empowering the tanks. The reflection enchantment activates, creating a hexagonal barrier that deflects the tentacles. Mark, the tank commander, grins fiercely, daring the monster to bring it on. Chimera stares into the darkness, knowing the main body is still hidden. She orders Haidmary to illuminate the target so they can see their foe. Haidmary prepares her spell, telling the beast to show its form as she invokes Photon Cartridge. A blinding flash of light erupts from her spell, flooding the entire cavern. The members of Night Dragonfly shield their eyes from the intense, revealing light. Chimera's face is grim, her eyes narrowed as the light finally reveals their enemy. The true Floor Lord is revealed, a colossal, multi-eyed slug monster of impossible scale. A close-up shows the monster's grotesque, slug-like head and writhing tentacles. The adventurers stare up in disbelief, one commenting on its unbelievable size. Chimera asks Vim if he recognizes it. He confirms it must be the Floor Lord. Terrified but analytical, Vim reports it's a new type, similar in biology to a sea slug. Chimera realizes fire will be effective, and Vim confirms their path is still clear. She orders the rear guard to prepare a full-scale fire assault on the monster. Haidmary unleashes a powerful fireball. A male mage casts a spell, commanding the beast to return to ash. Monica joins the assault, casting her own spell, Blessing of Warmth. A volley of fire magic streaks across the cavern towards the Floor Lord's multiple heads. The monster is engulfed in a massive fiery explosion, shrieking in agony. The party sees their attack is working, and Chimera gives a satisfied, "All right." She issues new orders for the vanguard to form pairs and engage the main body. Her gauntlet hand gestures as she orders the rear guard to do the same and provide cover. The party roars its assent and charges forward into the fray. Chimera gives a specific command to Vim. Focus all his enchantments on the shield unit. Mark and his squad of tanks let out a battle cry, ready for the fight. Vim, his face a mask of fierce determination, shouts his understanding of the order. The vanguard moves in perfect coordination, a magnificent spectacle of disciplined warfare. They employ masterful hit-and-run tactics, slowly chipping away at the massive Floor Lord. The entire battle unfolds with the calculated precision of a grandmaster's chess game. Even in the torrential rain, on enemy ground, they fight as a perfectly efficient unit. The tide of battle has turned. The wounded Floor Lord is being steadily cornered. Vim is awestruck, realizing this is the true, overwhelming power of Fire and Buron's top party. Chimera, her face shadowed by the rain, calls out to Vim. He turns to face his leader, a sense of anticipation hanging in the air. Chimera places her gauntlet hand firmly upon the hilt of her greatsword. She stands before Vim, declaring she is going in and needs a full power enhancement. With a confident, predatory smile, she tells him she's counting on him, just as always. Vim's anxiety is replaced by resolve as he agrees with a firm yes. In the rain-swept cavern, Chimera formally consents to Vim's powerful enchantment. The members of Night Dragonfly roar, knowing their mighty leader is entering the fray. Vim, his face a mask of focus, unleashes the optimal enhancement for Chimera. A wave of incandescent power surges through Chimera as she moves forward. She stands alone before the monster, her greatsword glowing with immense energy. The party members shout for everyone to fall back, giving their leader space. The colossal, slug-like Floor Lord looms over the solitary, silver-haired warrior. Vim watches the scene, his expression a mixture of awe and deep concern. He realizes her plan is to end this in one strike, a decisive, all-out gamble. Chimera thinks it is best to destroy the beast before it reveals its full power. With a fierce grin, she declares it is time to test their training's results. The scene flashes back several years to a time of struggle under a crescent moon. A younger Chimera pushes her body to its limit in the training courtyard. She pants for breath, sweat, and tears of frustration dripping from her face. Having honed her body in magic, she had still reached an unbreakable limit. With a final, desperate heave, she struggles to lift the impossibly heavy weight. Her gauntlet hands strain, her entire body screaming from the immense effort. Her strength finally fails, and a massive barrel crashes to the stone floor. She is thrown back by the force, her body collapsing to the ground in defeat. At 10:22 reps, she cries out in despair, having made no progress at all. She grits her teeth, whispering to herself that she has not improved one bit. In a moment of pure frustration, she slams her armored fist into the ground. Defeated, she resolved to give up improving and focus only on leading. The memory shifts to the present, as Vim's incredible power flows through her. Her party watches, begging her to succeed as she prepares for the final blow. She reflects that Vim's repeated enhancements have become a part of her. The refined power had seeped into her body, changing her from the inside out. For her, who had reached her limit, his unique enhancement had given her hope. She faces the wounded Floor Lord, its scorched body steaming in the rain. She thinks of the young boy, the one who unknowingly saved her from stagnation. She wonders if he has any idea just how deeply grateful she is to him. She recalls the thrill of his first enchantment, a moment of pure exhilaration. In that moment, she realizes her life as a true warrior had been reborn. She channels this profound gratitude, unleashing her ultimate attack, Great Sword Fall. A colossal blade of pure energy manifests, dwarfing the entire battlefield. Vim and Hans stare in disbelief. It is far larger than the wyvern fight. Hans realizes the open cavern allows her to unleash her power without limits. The blade descends with a roar, sending a massive spray of water into the air. The pillar of pure light slices down towards the helpless, waiting floor lord. The monster's grotesque face is caught in the path of the overwhelming attack. Hail Mary watches in awe, whispering that the blade is growing even larger. Chimera feels the power surge, marveling at how light and responsive she feels. A look of pure ecstasy on her face. She thinks fighting like this is bliss. A party member watches the attack, his mind unable to comprehend its scale. Mark screams for everyone to get back, fearing the unimaginable collateral damage. Chimera brings the massive blade of pure energy down with all her might. The tip of the blade makes contact with the floor lord's head. The attack continues its descent, a cataclysmic pillar of destructive light. Chimera's eyes wide with absolute focus, her entire being in the attack. A flash of pure white light fills the screen at the moment of impact. The blade cleaves through the cavern, a giant slash of incandescent energy. The floor lord is bisected vertically, its massive body split cleanly in two. One half of the monster's corpse begins to topple over with a final shudder. The party shields their eyes from the blinding light and the deafening roar. Vim winces, rubbing his eyes, overwhelmed by the incredible display of power. The two halves of the slain monster stand silently as rain washes over them. Chimera lands gracefully on the wet ground, the battle seemingly concluded. The members of Night Dragonfly stare in stunned silence at the aftermath. A single mouth opens, a choked sound of utter disbelief escaping. The silence breaks as a massive, collective roar of absolute victory erupts. The adventurers cheer wildly, their faces alight with triumph and sheer relief. Amid the cheers, Vim looks at his sensor tablet, a deep unease growing. His eye widens in suspicion. He feels that the battle is not yet over. Gaiman reports to Chimera that the target's life signs have completely vanished. The monster's corpse remains still, rain washing over its pale, lifeless flesh. A mage casts a final fireball, ensuring the creature is well and truly dead. Chimera commands her party not to let their guard down and to continue attacking. A warrior unleashes a vacuum wave, slicing into the unmoving corpse. Multiple attacks bombard the dead monster, kicking up clouds of stone and water. The party stands ready, their weapons still drawn, ensuring their victory is absolute. Gaiman's sensor beeps, providing a final, definitive confirmation of the kill. He cheers, announcing to everyone that the target is silenced and they have won. The entire party erupts in a massive, unrestrained celebration of their victory. They celebrate their legendary feat, a first-time subjugation of a new floor lord. One man declares they will have the biggest party ever when they return. Vim stands alone, apart from the joyous crowd, lost in his own dark thoughts. He looks on with a worried expression, sweat beading on his rain-soaked face. He asks himself what this nagging feeling is, why something feels so wrong. He wonders if it was the rain, or how easily they defeated the boss. He corrects himself. It was not easy. They just acted before the true threat emerged. He knows their flawless execution was the key, but still, something is amiss. Arbel approaches him from behind, calling his name with a cheerful voice. Vim turns, acknowledging his friend with a distracted, worried expression. Arbel warns him to be careful as the rising water nearly makes him fall. Vim grabs Arbel's shield, asking what is wrong as his friend looks concerned. His eyes widen in horror as he connects the rain with the monster's appearance. Arbel looks back, confused, as Vim begins to voice his horrifying theory. Vim wonders aloud what it would mean if the Floor Lord caused the rain. He shakes his head, trying to dismiss the terrible, impossible thought. Arbel pats him, telling him his usefulness has been proven beyond all doubt. Vim quietly uses his magic, a small sensor circle appearing by his hand. Chimera and the others approach, asking him what is troubling him. Vim reports his findings. The rising water is empowering semi-aquatic monsters. He explains that their own movement speed is decreasing while the monsters increases. Chimera understands he is saying the danger has not yet passed. He confirms. She thanks him for speaking up, admitting she had gotten carried away in victory. She declares the mission a success and gives the official order to withdraw. She then turns to Vim, asking if he has a plan for their retreat. Vim, looking at his map, confirms there is a narrow northwest passage. He points to a spot on the map where they might divert the water. Vim stood in the dark, flooded cavern, a question mark hanging over his head. He looked down at his trembling hand, wondering why he was still shaking. From the darkness, a host of immense, shadowy shapes descended upon the party. Vim and Arbel looked up in shock, exclaiming in surprise at the sudden movement. Arbel acted instantly, shoving Vim down to shield him from the unseen threat. Other adventurers reacted to the sound, questioning the source of the sudden waves. A small group stared up in silence at a colossal, dripping cliff face. From the water, a grotesque, fleshy mass of appendages began to emerge, writhing. The adventurers looked on, realizing with dawning horror that this was real. The true scale of the monster was revealed as it rose from the depths. It was a shelled behemoth of impossible size, dwarfing the entire party. In an instant, every member of Night Dragonfly understood the terrifying truth. This creature, they realized with chilling certainty, was the true Floor Lord. The scouts and warriors reeled in shock, their senses completely overwhelmed by the sight. Multiple slug-like heads, identical to their previous foe, rose from the main body. One warrior realized the creature they'd killed was just one of the boss's attendants. Vim could only stare, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. Chimera acknowledged grimly that the 98th floor would not be an easy conquest. Another pale, fleshy appendage began to squirm and rise from the darkness. The party was reduced to tiny specks in a vast, watery cavern of monsters. 3 armored warriors stood knee-deep in water, utterly bewildered by the situation. As a monstrous head loomed, a voice asked what they were supposed to do. The title of the chapter appeared over the scene, The Floor Lord. Gaiman, the scout leader, cried out that the rain was making it impossible to see. He concluded the downpour was an ability of the Floor Lord itself. A scout reported his findings, 2 of the monster's attendants on the west side. Another report came in from the east, confirming 2 more attendants there. To the south, a whole group of the slug-like creatures faced them down. A veteran warrior sweated, confirming 5 targets and wondering how they could possibly fight. Vim saw the chaos spreading, realizing everyone was surrounded and needed orders. He knew this was a crisis of absolute proportions, with retreat no longer possible. A single, powerful command cut through the rising panic. Calm down. It was Chimera, her gaze like steel, ordering them to form a defensive line. Vim looked up at his leader, startled by her unwavering composure. The warriors scrambled, shouting their assent as they moved to form a shield wall. Vim ran, inspired by his leader's unshakable calm, the mark of true leadership. The shield unit formed a wall of steel against the horde of monstrous attendants. A tank clenched his jaw, bracing for the inevitable impact. Another warrior set his shield, his face grim with determination. Vim stood behind the line, staring up at the overwhelming enemy forces. He asked what they could do now that their escape route was physically blocked. He worried if even Night Dragonfly could break through such a powerful foe. His mind raced, questioning how far they could fight and if they would be pursued. A voice shouted his name, snapping him out of his spiraling thoughts. Mark, the tank commander, yelled at him not to look so grim and to look around. Vim saw Hans and Monica, their expressions steady and prepared for battle. He saw Arbel and another warrior, their gazes fierce and unbroken. He saw the faces of the other adventurers, all filled with defiant resolve. With a jolt, Vim realized that he was the only one who was panicking. Mark gave him a confident smirk, a silent gesture of encouragement. Gritting his teeth, Vim agreed, vowing to do his part properly. He knew he had to learn from this, but victory was far from guaranteed. Their strength was sufficient, and for now, the crisis was merely approaching. His gaze hardened with newfound resolve. Everyone was going to return alive. He steeled himself to do what he could to execute his duty without fail. The monster stirred, its pale, scorched appendages beginning to move once more. A single, massive tentacle began to undulate, coiling in the air. It was joined by others, twisting together like a nest of serpents. Chimera roared at her party to brace themselves for the coming attack. The many slug-like heads reared back in unison, their tentacles writhing. The creatures prepared to unleash their combined assault upon the party. A dense forest of dark, shadowy tentacles rose from the main body. Vim thrust his hand forward, his voice ringing out with the single word, enchanted. The shields of the frontline tanks flared with a brilliant, protective light. The tanks roared their defiance, vowing to endure the attack no matter what. Chimera and Hans prepared to charge the floor lord after the initial impact. An impossibly dense wall of tentacles surged forward to crush the adventurers. Two warriors looked on in disbelief, overwhelmed by the sheer number of appendages. The tentacles descended with the force of a tidal wave, ready to smash the line. Vim stared, his eyes wide with shock at the sheer scale of the attack. The cataclysmic impact was just a fraction of a second away. Chimera let out a final, guttural scream. Here it comes. A tidal wave of crushing tentacles crashed down upon the entire party. The shield wall buckled under the immense, overwhelming pressure. Seasoned warriors were sent flying, their defenses utterly shattered. The relentless assault tore through their ranks with brutal efficiency. Vim was caught in the melee, desperately trying to fend off the crushing blows. A massive tentacle slammed into his back, the impact splattering blood. He was knocked forward, his face contorted in agony from the brutal hit. He grit his teeth, pushing back against the impossible, overwhelming pressure. He screamed at himself, his mind a single mantra, endure it. He knew he had to hold on, no matter the physical cost. Chimera screamed encouragement to her troops, urging them to hold their ground. Vim knew his leader's voice was the only thing giving them the strength to fight. Against the stark blackness, the name of the party hung like an epitaph. The devastating result was revealed. Night Dragonfly had been half destroyed. The battlefield was a scene of carnage, with adventurers scattered and defeated. The few survivors stared as the victorious monster loomed over them. The remaining members stood in the rising water, their proud party shattered. Vim clutched his knife, having anticipated the worst-case scenario. But even with their strength and training, the outcome was utterly devastating. This, he thought, was the unreasonable, illogical cruelty of the labyrinth. The enemy was simply too strong. Any party would have been annihilated. Chimera's quiet voice called out to him, Vim. She reminded him that since he was not an official member, he could escape. She then asked him to listen to her final request as their leader. Vim stared back, his face a mask of horrified understanding. He stammered that he couldn't do such a terrible thing, but she apologized. She stated that a full retreat was impossible. Their only hope was the two of them. She commanded him to apply his full power to her, so she could defeat the floor lord. Vim stares in horror, sweat and rain mixing on his face. Chimera orders them to form squads and find an opening. Chimera tasks Vim with finding an escape, but he hesitates. She assures him it's okay, as Night Dragonfly's members are excellent. Vim panics, pleading with her to stop acting like a martyr. He shouts her name, fearing for her Hail Mary, and Arbel's future. Terror fills Vim's eyes as the weight of the moment crushes him. Chimera makes her plea, formally consenting to receive Vim's enhancement. Vim's face contorts in desperation, trapped by her impossible request. Overwhelmed, he squeezes his eyes shut, agonizing over the decision. His hand trembles as he prepares to cast the fateful spell. Vim cries out as a wave of power envelopes Chimera. The raw power of the enchantment surges through the battlefield. Glowing with energy, Chimera commands everyone to watch her. She declares that these will be her final words, her final command. She orders them to fight the boss while Vim forges a path. With a final, heartfelt word, she thanks them all for everything. A young adventurer cries out in protest, unable to accept her sacrifice. Her communication spell is abruptly cut off by an outside force. The adventurer realizes in shock that the connection has been severed. A strange sense of calm washes over Chimera's face. She feels a great weight lift from her shoulders, light and free. Her eye snaps open, burning with the pure resolve of a warrior. The monstrous tentacles of the floor lord writhe before her. Chimera declares that she will face the master of this floor. She vows to take the monster's life, even if it costs her own. She explodes into motion, a silver comet of righteous fury. The world blurs as she moves with impossible, enhanced speed. Her voice echoes, calling upon her ultimate attack, Great Sword Fall. She becomes a whirlwind of silver steel, carving through the tentacles. The massive appendage is severed, but the monster is unfazed. Chimera's face is a mask of determination amidst the chaos. Chimera's attack rips through the air, a flash of pure energy. The shockwave from her strike tears through the watery cavern. Her blade of light slams into the forest of writhing tentacles. The monster's appendages are shredded, spraying ichor across the battlefield. She uses a severed tentacle as a launch pad, defying gravity. She soars through the air, a blur of motion and power. She realizes the monster won't give her an opening for a decisive blow. Excellent, she thinks, preparing another devastating, wide-arc swing of her sword. She's in a state of perfect flow, her senses heightened. With a powerful cry, her greatsword cleaves through another appendage. The severed limb falls away, a testament to her overwhelming power. She continues her relentless assault, a silver tempest of destruction. The true face of the floor lord appears through the chaos. A fierce, joyous grin spreads across her face as she charges. Her body moves perfectly, effortlessly beyond the need for thought. She wonders if this incredible power is truly her own. Was she always capable of such a magnificent display of power? Her blade carves a path of destruction through the monster's defenses. The monster's grotesque maw opens wide, preparing a counterattack. "I can do it," she roars, confident she can fight it equally. She will sever all its tentacles and then strike the main body. "More! More!" she screams, pushing her body and the enchantment further. Vim stands alone in the rain, watching the battle unfold. He marvels that she hasn't faltered despite his reckless enhancement. He realizes this is the true power of Firenburon's strongest warrior. This is the full power of a warrior staking her very life. He cannot let her sacrifice be in vain. He must follow her orders. He must help everyone and then retreat. He steels his resolve, clenching his fist. It's time to retreat. He summons a complex magic circle to aid the wounded. Hail Mary is already tending to Mark and another injured adventurer. The grizzled tank offers a weak but sincere word of thanks. Vim rushes to her side, calling out her name in relief. She tells him she trusted he would come to help them. Vim, relieved, says that they should be all right for now. Hail Mary reports that while Hans is safe, another squad is in trouble. "Let's go," she says, turning to lead the way. Vim agrees, but as he tries to move, a sudden heaviness stops him. His arm hangs limp at his side, refusing to obey. His feet feel as though they are rooted to the ground. He is completely, inexplicably paralyzed, unable to take a step. Mary turns back, questioning why he has stopped following. She calls his name, her expression etched with growing concern. Vim grits his teeth, his body trembling with an unseen struggle. He thinks he's just tired, but knows it's something more. Kronos' sneering face appears, telling him he's useless and should obey. It's the same feeling he had with Dragon's Fawn. He curses himself for remembering this at such a critical moment. Mary calls out to him again, her voice distant and worried. Her face is a mask of fear, sensing his internal crisis. He remembers Chimera telling him that being timid isn't safe. She told him it was fine to just do what he could. She praised his wonderful enhancement, and he insisted he did nothing. His thoughts are a tangled mess. Why did this never happen before? A whirlwind of memories with night, dragonfly flashes through his mind. He tells himself to focus, to obey Chimera's orders. He tells himself not to think, just follow orders like always. Obey Chimera's command. Move your feet, he screams internally. Chimera's voice, full of concern, calls out his name. He tries to force himself to move, counting down from 3. Suddenly, a hand reaches out and grabs his shoulder. "Hey, Vim!" Mary screams, forcing him to face her. Her grip is like a vice, a desperate anchor in his storm. "What?" he stammers as she tells him she'll show him his expression. She says it's the same pathetic, fawning smile he wore for Kronos. What are you talking about?" he asks, stunned. "Don't run away, Vim," she screams. "Think properly." Her brutal words shock him, but what is she trying to say? In a vision of a rain-swept wasteland, Chimera tells Vim he is lost. Vim's eyes are wide with sweat-soaked terror, completely unable to respond. A massive, pale tentacle whips through the air with incredible, deadly speed. Chimera becomes a blur of motion, dodging a storm of lashing tentacles. Her greatsword flashes, severing a thick appendage in a violent spray of ichor. Mark and the others roar with encouragement, their faith in her absolutely unwavering. The vice captain rallies the battered troops, urging them not to give up hope. Another of the monster's tentacles falls, sliced cleanly by her impossible speed. She continues to carve a devastating path through the writhing mass of flesh. The beast's countless appendages are no match for her divinely swift assault. Her face is a mask of pure, predatory focus, her gaze locked on her foe. She leaps gracefully through the air, her blade a beautiful, silver arc of death. She finally comes face to face with the Floor Lord's massive, shelled body. Suddenly, Chimera realizes with a jolt that the monster's attacks have stopped. Her eye widens in alarm as she sees the monster prepare its next move. Seeing a fleeting opportunity, she vows not to let the chance escape her. The monster's massive shell begins to spin, transforming into a colossal buzzsaw. With a ferocious roar, she unleashes the full, unrestrained force of her power. The spinning shell becomes a grinding, inescapable vortex of destruction and death. She unleashes her ultimate finishing technique, the devastating giant hunt. The monster quickly retracts its vulnerable, fleshy parts into its impenetrable shell. Mary looks on from the sidelines, her face a mask of dawning horror. The other members of Night Dragonfly can only scream in absolute terror. The spinning shell connects with brutal force, her armor shattering on impact. The terrifying, joyous grin is wiped from her face as she is sent flying. The sheer force of the blow sends her hurtling across the cavern floor. Vim and Mary watch, their faces frozen in shared, horrified disbelief. Her body is thrown like a broken doll through the rain-swept air. Vim screams her name, his voice raw with terror and abject desperation. All thought vanishes as he activates a 3x instantaneous enhancement on himself. He watches her fall from the sky, his body already moving to intercept. He screams for Arbel, calling for the shield unit's immediate protection. Arbel looks on in shock, his mind racing to process the sudden command. A follow-up attack, a piercing tentacle, shoots towards the fallen leader. Vim becomes a streak of light, crossing the entire battlefield in an instant. He slides across the wet stone, catching her broken body in his arms. Holding her limp form, he desperately screams her name one more time. The monster's follow-up attack looms, promising certain death for them both. Arbel appears just in time, his shield erupting with the light of reflection. He vows to protect them, and a tearful Vim thanks him for his loyalty. A pained gasp escapes Chimera as dark blood trickles from her lips. Vim frantically asks if she can hear him, if she is all right. He realizes with horror that her bones are shattered, and she's bleeding internally. Barely conscious, her first thought is for her party as she asks who remains. Vim explains that everyone is still here. They couldn't bring themselves to abandon her. A single, silent tear traces a path through the grime on her cheek. He vows they will all return home together, but she just calls him young. She orders them to leave the wounded like her behind and save themselves. Vim looks on in horror, completely unable to accept her final, grim command. Despite her catastrophic injuries, Chimera somehow forces herself back to her feet. She declares that with his enhancement, she can still become their shield. Vim screams in protest, telling her it's impossible for her to fight now. Her gaze is unwavering, filled with a leader's unbreakable and grim resolve. The rest of the party forms a ragged, desperate defensive line around her. Their faces are grim with determination, but they will not abandon their commander. She whispers to herself that it is not yet time for them to give up. She begs him for his power, formally consenting to his most powerful enchantment. Vim's face is a mask of pure anguish, trapped by her final, desperate plea. He realizes her hesitation is wasting precious time and throwing her life away. Hans knows that even with a sacrifice, the party faces certain devastation. A flood of warm, happy memories with Night Dragonfly fills Vim's mind. He swallows hard, a profound and terrifying calm settling over him. His face falls in a shadow as he makes his final, terrible decision. His eye is sharp, filled with a resolve they have never seen before. He remembers all the cruel insults, the reasons he believed he was worthless. But he knows now that he must protect Chimera and his newfound family. He can never repay the kindness these wonderful, accepting people showed him. He activates a magic circle, for they are the ones who truly accepted him. He turns to them, announcing that there is still one path left for them. Hans and Monica look on, stunned by his sudden and unexpected authority. He apologizes, but declares that he is disobeying Chimera's direct order. Arbel can only stammer his name, completely taken aback by this sudden change. He clenches his fist, sure that this is the best choice he can make. He tells himself there is no other way, so this must be the right path. He will hold off the monster himself, telling the others to find a chance to retreat. Chimera stands frozen, asking what on earth he is possibly saying to her. He whispers the name of a spell, a single, simple word, halt. Chimera is paralyzed, and he apologizes for using the reverse enhancement. He declares with chilling finality that he will defeat the Floor Lord. Chimera realizes he was hiding something, demanding to know what it is. He muses that he hates such irregular actions, but now it can't be helped. He remembers their words, the ones that urge him to live as he pleases. A strange, faint, and utterly unsettling smile touches his lips. He brings his fingers to his temple, invoking transfer, puppeteer. He now stands alone in the downpour, facing the colossal monster. Haidmary calls out his name, her voice soft in the torrential rain. She asks if he is truly going, and he simply affirms her question. A sad smile on her face, she notes how surprisingly bold he has become. She knows he has always been prone to these sudden, reckless acts of bravery. With tears in his eyes, he smiles and says a final goodbye to her. She tells him not to say that, insisting that if it's him, he can win. He says she overestimates him. He is only trying to buy them some time. He knows this monster is far stronger than the last floor lord he faced. He stops, a strange feeling making him cover his mouth in surprise. A manic smile spreads across his face as he admits he's actually excited. She notices his knees are shaking and wonders if he is truly scared. He acknowledges the trouble, accepting that his life is on the line. She tells him that what he is feeling is not simply fear. She tells him it is time to go, and he bids her a final farewell. She thinks that he still doesn't know his true self, but she does. In the pouring rain, Hail Mary's voice hopes that one day she will know Vim best. She admits to herself that despite her claims, there are still things she doesn't know. She watches Vim face the monster and wonders why he is smiling at a time like this. With a sickening squelch, the floor lord's severed appendages begin to stir. From the ragged stump of a tentacle, new flesh begins to bulge outward. The appendage rapidly extends, growing back with unnatural speed. A new, fully formed tentacle writhes, the monster's regeneration complete and horrifying. The members of Night Dragonfly stare in despair, realizing Chimera's effort was for nothing. Vim feels the labyrinth's waters rising around his ankles, a grim reminder of their dwindling time. He stands alone, a solitary figure before the colossal, multi-headed floor lord. He knows he must end this quickly, before the rising water empowers the beast further. The monster's dark, writhing silhouette looms over him, a creature of pure nightmare. Surrounded by the shadows of its undulating tentacles, he looks up at his foe. He takes a sharp, steadying breath, preparing himself for the impossible task ahead. With a silent gulp, he swallows his fear, sweat mixing with the endless rain. His hand clenches into a tight, white-knuckled fist, his resolve hardening into steel. His eyes narrow with focus as he prepares to unleash the full, terrifying extent of his power. He begins to analyze the human body, knowing its enhancement is a matter of immense difficulty. The most basic enchantment, level 1, is the simple reinforcement of bone and muscle. A higher level, 4 and 5, requires enhancing the heart and the very blood that flows within. This is a forbidden art, for the heart itself is considered a taboo part to manipulate. But beyond all of this lies the ultimate heresy, the final level, enhancing the brain. He recalls long hours spent in a dusty library, searching for this forbidden knowledge. He remembers his frustration, finding only scant, fearful mentions of brain enhancement. The ancient text spoke of attempts, but none had ever truly succeeded in the art. He focused on the part of the body that governs all consciousness and perception. The books promised incredible power, but warned that the danger was equally immense. It was a risk few enchanters would ever take, a self-destructive and lonely path. He recalls thinking that surely no one would risk their life to test such a theory. But a grim look of resolve had settled upon his face. He was that person. He remembers Kronos' sneering dismissal, the final push he needed to seek his own strength. He knew that to gain the power he so desperately craved, there was only one path. This forbidden, self-destructive art was the only choice he ever had. In the present, he brings 2 fingers to his temple and invokes his ultimate skill. Transfer, puppeteer. A magic circle imprints itself upon his mind, overclocking his brain with raw power. His eye snaps wide, his pupil a pinpoint of agony and concentration. A chaotic film strip of his memories with night dragonfly flashes through his mind. He throws his head back, a raw, guttural scream of pain tearing from his throat. He knows that if he is not careful, this enhancement will cause a catastrophic system overload. His entire process is a desperate act of maintaining self-awareness in a storm of sensation. Through repeated, agonizing self-questioning, he has honed his senses to a razor's edge. He has found the precise multiplier to push his mind to its limit without shattering. This is his absolute limit, a state where the side effects will manifest as brain damage. But it is possible. He can make the impossible theory a reality through sheer willpower. The floor lord, sensing his power, lunges forward with a furious roar. Vim reappears, a manic grin on his face, standing on the very shadow of the beast. He grips his small knife, ready to dance with death itself. The monster's tentacles lash out, a storm of flesh and fury. A forest of appendages converges on his position, seeking to crush him into nothing. The tentacles slam together with thunderous force, but their target is already gone. Vim stands unharmed, having dodged an attack that should have been impossible to survive. A bead of sweat rolls down his face as he thinks that this is bad. He might be dead. He pulls a small, round object from his pouch, a secret tool for this very moment. He crushes it in his hand, releasing a strange, reality-altering energy. His perception shifts, and the world around him seems to slow to a crawl. An explosion of water erupts where a tentacle strikes, but it is far too slow. Vim easily dodges, his body moving with a speed that defies the eye. His own eye is now calm, his mind processing the slow-motion world with perfect clarity. More tentacles writhe towards him, their movements now ponderous and predictable. He becomes a blur of motion, weaving through the gaps in the monster's assault. He slides under a crushing blow, his movements fluid and impossibly precise. He kicks off the air itself, using the recoil to change his trajectory in mid-flight. He lands gracefully on one of the monster's own writhing appendages. With breathtaking speed, he runs up the length of the massive, living tentacle. His eyes are wide, a crazed focus burning within them as he nears his target. He leaps from the tentacle, a human missile aimed at the Floor Lord's main body. He lands amidst the forest of appendages, a wolf in a den of serpents. His face is a mask of grim, focused determination as he prepares to strike. From a distance, Hans and Arbel can only stare in utter, slack-jawed disbelief. He continues his impossible dance, weaving between attacks that could shatter stone. He slides along a tentacle, his knife carving a deep gash as he moves. His fingers tap against a magic circle, preparing his next impossible feat. He unleashes a 20-fold brain acceleration enhancement, pushing himself far beyond his limits. He dives headfirst into a seemingly impenetrable wall of writhing tentacles. His face is twisted in a manic grin as he thinks how slowly everything is moving. He can feel the state of his entire body as if he were holding it in his hands. He knows the optimal movement, the perfect timing for every single action. He is aware of every muscle fiber, processing their movements in thousandths of a second. The strong, he thinks, train to win every time, a feat of consistency and power. But the weak, like him, must pour everything into seizing a 1 in a million chance. He makes a single, perfect cut, declaring that he will force this miracle to succeed. He moves with impossible grace, a tiny figure dancing between colossal, deadly limbs. His eyes are fixed on his goal, knowing he needs the momentum from this jump. He enhances his own ligaments, reinforcing his body to withstand the impossible strain. He kicks off a tentacle, using its own mass to launch himself through the air. He becomes a phantom, a blur that flies through the storm of the monster's attacks. He grits his teeth, a sharp gasp of effort escaping his lips. With a flash of his blade, another of the monster's appendages is severed. He lands, his mind a frantic mantra. Keep seizing the miracles, or you will die. He lunges forward, his voice a silent scream for the monster to perish. A pained grimace twists his features, the physical toll of his power immense. Far in the distance, Chimera and Haidmary watch the impossible battle unfold. They are frozen in place, their faces masks of shock and utter disbelief. Chimera can only stammer, her mind unable to comprehend what she is witnessing. She questions the very nature of his movements, how he seems to kick off the air itself. Haidmary explains that he is using the recoil, a feat that should destroy a normal body. It is only because his body is so perfectly enhanced that he can perform such a feat. Chimera watches, her face streaked with rain, and understands. This is no longer human movement. Hail Mary looks across the water at the boy she thought she knew and whispers his name. With tears streaming down her face, she screams with all her might for him to live as he pleases. A manic, joyful laugh escapes Vim's lips as the rain pours down. He soars through the air, exulting in having chained together impossible, one-in-a-million miracles. Though utterly lost in the chaos, he knows one thing: he will not die yet. A single miscalculation, a thousandth of a second's error, would mean instant, bone-shattering death. The sheer, overwhelming danger only brings another wild laugh to his face. He confronts the monster head-on, confident that his own speed is far superior. The creature responds not with claws, but with a complex, glowing magic circle. Vim stares in utter shock, realizing the beast can cast powerful magic. A blinding beam of pure energy erupts from the arcane sigil. For a split second, his mind is lost in the face of this new threat. He twists his body with impossible agility, narrowly avoiding the magical blast. He lands hard on a fleshy tentacle, using its surface as a springboard. The monster cunningly blasts its own limb, creating a powerful, targeted explosion. He realizes the monster deliberately sacrificed its own tentacle to attack him. The resulting shockwave sends him hurtling uncontrollably through the cavern. The beast gives him no time to rest, unleashing a relentless barrage. He weaves through the storm of energy, a phantom of impossible speed. The monster seems to watch, stunned that he has dodged everything. He screams into the storm, vowing to evade every single attack thrown. He is a lone speck of defiance in a forest of monstrous limbs. Far below, the wounded Chimera digs her heels in, preparing to offer support. She unleashes a powerful kick, a desperate attempt to create an opening. He continues his aerial ballet, a blur of motion against the chaos. The colossal beast begins to move, its sheer mass churning the water. Another near miss only elicits another wild, exhilarated laugh from the enchanter. His face, inverted and rain-slicked, is a mask of pure, terrifying joy. The grizzled veterans of the SHIELD unit can only stare in utter disbelief. They ask what they are seeing, unable to comprehend the solo battle unfolding. Only Hail Mary sees the agony beneath his power, whispering his name in sorrow. They witness a single enchanter fighting the mighty floor lord on even terms. This is an ultra-high-speed battle, fought in the span of mere milliseconds. One of the mages can only stammer, calling the sight simply amazing. The chapter is titled Metamorphosis, with Vim depicted as a puppet on strings. Another magic circle flares to life, spinning with arcane power. The monster unleashes another devastating blast of concentrated magical energy. His face is a mask of pure focus as he prepares to counter. He carves a wide, graceful arc through the air, evading the attack. The destructive beam passes harmlessly by, missing him by mere inches. He becomes a whirlwind of steel, his knife striking multiple heads at once. The colossal beast lets out a deafening roar of pain and fury. Chimera watches, her helmet cracked, her expression grim and focused. He defies gravity, running along the length of a thrashing tentacle. He presses his assault, his face a mask of grim determination. The monster's maw gapes open, preparing to swallow its tiny foe. He grits his teeth, pushing his enhanced body to its absolute limit. A dangerous light begins to build within the creature's gaping mouth. He is shocked to see the monster propel itself with a jet of water. He realizes the beast is using water jets to leap across the battlefield. The entire colossal body of the floor lord launches into the air. For a terrifying moment, the massive creature is completely airborne. It crashes back into the water with the force of a meteor. The resulting tidal wave nearly sweeps the wounded Chimera off her feet. Vim is thrown through the air like a doll by the sheer force. He is dazed and confused, asking himself what he is even doing. His mind feels disconnected from his body, which moves on pure instinct. Chimera's ice magic strikes, a desperate attempt to create an opening. A massive pillar of jagged ice erupts from the churning water. He lands safely atop the newly formed pillar of ice. Chimera watches from below, her strength nearly spent from the spell. He knows he must strike now, or the monster will crush him. He focuses his mind, ready to seize another one-in-a-million chance. He tells himself that being on death's door means he's still alive. The monster's head swivels, its many eyes fixing on its target. He dives from the pillar, a falling projectile of flesh and steel. He realizes his attacks, while damaging, haven't reached the creature's core. He senses a new threat, a dark energy gathering around the monster. A wave of pure, dark energy erupts, blasting him away from his target. The force of the blast slams him hard against the cavern wall. He uses the impact to launch himself back into the fight. The immense strain of the battle is finally showing on his face. He feels his power fading. His time in this state is up. His only thought now is to escape before his body gives out. The monster unleashes another high-pressure jet of water, cutting off his retreat. The blast hits him squarely, sending him flying across the water. The attack inadvertently brings him closer to one of the monster's heads. A serene smile crosses his face as he marvels at his own performance. He lands perfectly on a small ledge on the cavern wall. His body is steaming from the exertion, burning with adrenaline and power. Though his body burns, his mind is cold, and he wonders if he's excited. The manic grin fades, replaced by a look of shocked confusion. He suddenly realizes with a jolt that he got carried away by the thrill. He sees his comrades and remembers the lives resting on his shoulders. He chastises himself for enjoying the fight when there's no time for fun. The horrifying question dawns on him. Was he actually having fun? This is the nature of his power, a skill that brushes with death. He understands that the greater the risk, the more excited he becomes. He feels he has been waiting his entire life for this very moment. The realization leaves him blushing, confused by his own nature. He asks himself if this is what it feels like to be truly alive. In the wake of his epiphany, the entire cavern falls strangely silent. The colossal floor lord has ceased its relentless assault completely. The monster turns its attention away from Vim toward its smaller brethren. One of its massive tentacles reaches out, not to attack but to touch. It begins to gently pat the heads of the smaller, slug-like creatures. The gesture is strangely tender, a bizarre sight on the battlefield. His comrades can only watch, asking what the monster is possibly doing. Hans voices a terrifying theory. The creature is undergoing a metamorphosis. The smaller creatures begin to melt, their forms dissolving into the main body. They become a grotesque, amorphous pile of melting, squirming flesh. Vim can only stare, completely baffled by this horrifying and bizarre transformation. Vim watches from a high ledge as the floor lord transforms before his party. Mark knows from experience that floor lords always have a second, deadlier form. He remembers the last floor lord, Gerald, and its terrifying multiple heads. Mark grimly acknowledges that the party has been completely cornered by this new threat. The monster's tentacles writhe and multiply, a grotesque and overwhelming sight. The floor lord's true form is revealed, a crowned abomination with a dark sigil. A manic grin spreads across Vim's face. He coolly accepts that this is round two. The strange symbol on the creature's head pulses with a malevolent, dark energy. From below, the sheer scale of the transformed monster is utterly intimidating. Mark screams that it's changing form, ordering the younger members to fall back immediately. He tells Arbel to retreat, insisting this is a fight for the veteran soldiers. Arbel, his face a mask of defiance, screams that he will not abandon his post. Mark looks on, puzzled by Arbel's emotional outburst and refusal to obey. Arbel's gaze drifts towards the distant, lone figure of Vim on the cliffside. With tears streaming down his face, Arbel declares that their light of hope still exists. Mark lets out a short laugh, a look of respect dawning on his face. He yells for Vim not to die, and a voice from afar affirms the command. The monster's halo begins to glow, its segmented body bristling with sharp spikes. High above, Vim senses a terrible premonition from the strange floating object. He realizes an aerial attack would leave the support units completely defenseless. Knowing his current power is insufficient, Vim resolves that he must push further. He unleashes a 50-fold instantaneous enhancement, launching himself forward with explosive force. The immense power courses through him, his face contorting from strain. His vision expands, his pupils swirling as he begins to see beyond physical limits. The world dissolves into a wireframe grid. He will memorize and process it all. He clutches his head, feeling the intense, searing heat as his brain overclocks. The monster's halo dissolves into a storm of magic circles, preparing its assault. A torrential downpour of high-pressure water projectiles rains down upon a battlefield. A tiny figure against the storm, Vim dives headfirst into the inescapable barrage. With his knife held ready, his face is a mask of pure, unadulterated focus. He becomes a phantom, weaving between the deadly projectiles with impossible speed and grace. He twists and turns, using his entire body to deflect and evade the storm. His blade is a blur, carving a safe path through the curtain of water spears. Using a tentacle as a springboard, he launches himself deeper into the chaos. His knife moves with blinding speed, a perfect extension of his preternatural senses. He lands a clean, direct hit on one of the monster's writhing appendages. The creature's flesh is sliced apart by his impossibly fast and precise strike. In his enhanced state, he can see everything, every single attack from every angle. He perceives reflections, shadows, and even attacks coming from his blind spots. His mind processes it all. Tentacles, blades, spears, and bullets become simple data. He stands calmly in the heart of the storm, a master of the chaos. His wide, unblinking eye can predict the trajectory of every single attack. He throws his own magic circle, transforming it into a spinning, deadly disc. The chakram of light slices cleanly through one of the monster's tentacles. Using the recoil, he launches himself away, turning a defensive move into an attack. A wild grin spreads across his face as he taunts the Floor Lord's useless attacks. He is overcome with a feeling of pure joy, of absolute, omnipotent control. The thrill of knowing that a single misstep means instant death electrifies him. He feels the stimulating reality of this life-or-death struggle against the Floor Lord. An unstoppable, joyous impulse he never knew he possessed bursts forth from within. His eyes are wide with ecstatic glee. This is a full-blown festival of battle. A blade of water slices through the air, narrowly missing his head. He twists his body, dodging another sweeping attack by a mere fraction of an inch. He gasps, a manic laugh escaping his lips as he admits that was a close call. From afar, Hail Mary watches his impossible dance through her magical periscope. Chimera, kneeling and wounded, tells Hail Mary that is enough, thanking her for the support. Her face bruised, Chimera desperately asks Hans for a status report on their escape. Hans reports they're overwhelmed protecting the wounded and asks about supporting Vim. Chimera silently considers the question, her gaze fixed on the distant battle. The battlefield is an incomprehensible maelstrom of tentacles and magical energy. She concludes that his super high-speed combat is impossible for them to interfere with. She gives the final order, retreat as far as possible and focus only on defense. With a grunt, she prepares to unleash her own powerful technique, Great Sword Fall. A massive explosion of white energy erupts from her blade, clearing a path. She looks toward the chaotic battle, remembering Vim's promise to defeat the monster. She recalls his defiant words, finally understanding that he was not bluffing at all. She realizes he is not just fighting. He is completely cornering the massive beast. Resolved, she decides to trust him, knowing they cannot join a battle of this dimension. The title card appears, heralding the beginning of the decisive battle. Vim falls through the air, dodging between two massive, fleshy tentacles. He never knew this side of himself existed, and he cherishes this precious moment. He backflips away from a sweeping attack with breathtaking, acrobatic grace. Landing lightly on another tentacle, the wild, joyful grin never leaves his face. He realizes that he is only dodging, not getting any closer to the main body. He knows this will become a war of attrition if he doesn't think of a plan. His mind races, his eyes scanning the monster's defenses for a single weakness. He spots it, a strange, black miasma swirling deep within the monster's shell. He knows that must be the core. If he can destroy that, he will win. His overclocked mind instantly calculates a single, perfect path to victory. He doesn't even comprehend how his own mind produced this shortest possible route. He understands it is a continuous chain of brilliant, intuitive flashes of insight. It is an answer born from overlapping probabilities, perfectly adapted to reality. He knows that if he follows this path, victory is certain, so long as he doesn't fail. He remembers his old self, the boy who was always trembling with fear and anxiety. But now, he sees it clearly, a premonition of victory, a one-in-a-million miracle. His hand clenches into a fist. The odds are impossible, but he is certain he can do it. He accepts that it is a suicide mission, but the thrill is worth the risk. He hurls his spinning magic circle through the air like a deadly chakram. The disk of light flies true, a beacon on his path to victory. His face distorts from the sheer G-force of his own impossible acceleration. The Floor Lord unleashes a storm of water blades to intercept his charge. He weaves through the deadly barrage, his trajectory unwavering and absolute. A blade of water slices past his face, missing him by millimeters. His eyes are narrowed, filled with a cold, unwavering determination. His foot finds purchase on a tentacle, using it as a final launch pad. The monster fires a beam of energy. Chimera screams his name in warning. The beam is not aimed at him, but at the monster's own exposed core. Arbel watches in shock, crying out that Vim has suddenly vanished from sight. High above, Vim clings to the cavern ceiling, having jumped there in an instant. He dives from the darkness, a human meteor descending upon the Floor Lord's heart. Vim plummets, thinking the monster is chasing him all the way down. He decides to use the fall's momentum to accelerate his attack. Kicking off the tentacles, he becomes a human missile plunging downwards. The world blurs into vertical lines as his speed becomes immense. Sound itself vanishes, leaving him in a silent, accelerated freefall. He feels utterly alone, as if he is the only one left. The Floor Lord's main body senses the rapidly approaching threat from above. A massive, hexagonal energy barrier materializes to block his path. Vim sees the barrier, his face a mask of grim determination. He smashes through the magical shield, shattering it into glittering shards. The monster's many heads recoil in shock at the impossible breach. He resolves to pour all his remaining strength into hardening his body. Maintaining his speed, he plunges head first into the nest of tentacles. He tears through the monster's flesh with a sickening, powerful impact. The sound of ripping flesh echoes as he burrows deeper inside. His eyes widen in discovery, having spotted his target within the beast. He has found the core, a swirling, malevolent vortex of black mist. With a final, feral snarl, he throws himself at the darkness. His attack connects, and the black mist begins to violently implode. The core shatters, spraying particles of darkness into the void. Reality itself begins to fracture, the world glitching and breaking apart. Vim finds himself standing alone in a silent, white, glitching void. He looks around, utterly bewildered by the sudden shift in his surroundings. A pool of black, Viscous liquid begins to seep from the cracks. From the inky pool, a new and mysterious form starts to rise. A massive, shadowy hand emerges from the darkness, reaching upwards. The shadowy figure pulls itself from the liquid, taking a humanoid shape. A colossal shadow creature now towers over him, its presence overwhelming. It leans down, its form shifting as it draws closer to him. The shadow being looms over the small, solitary adventurer in the void. Vim looks up, his expression strangely calm and unafraid. The creature speaks to him in a language of alien, flowing runes. He cannot understand the words, but he feels no malice from it. He simply nods in acknowledgement before the world shatters once more. He lands with a heavy splash back in the flooded labyrinth cavern. Panting with absolute exhaustion, every muscle in his body screams. Sweat and drool stream down his face as his last strength gives out. The wounded floor lord twitches, its tentacles rising for another attack. He hears his name being called, his eyes widening in sudden surprise. His weary gaze lifts toward the sound of his approaching comrades. The remaining members of Night Dragonfly charge towards him through the water. Led by Chimera, their faces are filled with overwhelming relief and concern. A dawning realization hits him as he looks at their faces. He understands he was fighting to protect every single one of them. The weight of this revelation is too much, and he finally collapses. His comrades cry out his name in alarm as he falls forward. Chimera's eyes widen in horror as she watches him go down. The party looks up in shock as the impossible rain finally stops. The expedition's successes: 3 gold veins and 28 new monster species. The cost of victory: the floor lord defeated, but 106 members wounded. Weeks later, on the 50th floor, the scene shifts to another party. A massive, toad-like monster faces off against the party dragon's fawn. Its tongue lashes out like a spear, but Kronos easily dodges. Kronos barks a sharp order for Nicola to act immediately. Nicola responds, slamming her hands together to cast her defensive spell. Her pulverize spell raises a wall of rock, blocking the beast. The monster is stunned, its powerful attack thwarted by the stone barrier. Melis then casts her bind spell, ensnaring the creature in vines. Kronos calls for Melis, who confirms that she is ready to attack. Her flame membrane spell engulfs the trapped monster in a torrent of fire. Kronos' sword tip gleams as he prepares to deliver the final strike. He channels his energy into the blade, ready to finish the fight. The monster shrieks in agony, completely helpless and burning alive. Kronos' blade sinks deep into the creature's scorched flesh. In a single, flashing combination, he slices the monster into pieces. Blood splatters across his cheek as he looks on, utterly satisfied. He lets out a small, arrogant huff of breath, unimpressed. His party members cheer from behind, praising his coolness and skill. Sophia watches, thinking they're amazing as a report details their progress. The others celebrate their improved teamwork now that Nicola has recovered. Sophia thinks about how she's taken over planning and other chores. She finds it surprising they have been able to function at all. She acknowledges that the other 3 members have talent and potential. However, their bravery is reckless, a thin line away from foolishness. The famous dragon's Fong of the front lines is now long gone. She concludes that defeating another floor lord is physically impossible for them. The scene shifts to the dragon's Fong party house later that night. A meal is laid out on the table, but the atmosphere is tense. The 4 members eat their dinner in a heavy, suffocating silence. Sophia looks down at her bowl, the uncomfortable tension palpable. Kronos eats mechanically, pointedly avoiding eye contact with the others. Nicola eats with her eyes closed, trying to ignore the awkward mood. Melis looks on with a smug, silent expression, waiting for something. Melis breaks the silence, complaining about Nicola's poor cooking skills. Nicola apologizes meekly as Kronos laughs it off, calling her a klutz. Melis taunts Nicola, who protests weakly that she won't eat it. The forced, awkward banter dies and the oppressive silence returns. Sophia thinks how agonizing this heavy atmosphere is every single time. Melis stirs her food, trying to think of something to say. She suddenly has an idea, catching the attention of a bored Kronos. With a predatory grin, Kronos suggests they increase their numbers. The three women look at him, completely stunned by the sudden idea. He declares that they are now a proper A-rank party, after all. He boasts they can recruit anyone to return to the front lines. Nicola nervously asks how many new members he is thinking of recruiting. He muses that more is better, suggesting dozens of new adventurers. Nicola's face pales with worry at such an absurd and reckless number. Melis looks on with a deeply concerned and uncertain expression. Sophia stares, her mouth slightly agape in utter disbelief. Kronos muses that he must be careful not to recruit any weird men. At the Dragon's Fong dinner table, Melis asks Sophia for her opinion. Melis waits for an answer, her smile looking increasingly strained and forced. A smug Kronos listens in, a slight, knowing smile on his face. Sophia internally observes that their leader, Kronos, seems to enjoy controlling people. Melis admits that she feels more at ease having a girl around. With a serious expression, Sophia considers this yet another problem for the party. A diagram shows the party's love triangle, with both girls liking Kronos. Sophia worries that Kronos' fickle attention might soon turn towards her. With a sigh, Sophia understands why Melis is making such a face. Kronos interrupts her thoughts, casually asking what's wrong. Sophia cautiously advises him that they should be more careful about expanding. Kronos listens to her suggestion, his expression unreadable and impassive. A heavy, tense silence falls over the dinner table afterwards. Sophia looks on nervously, a bead of sweat tracing a path down her temple. Kronos dismisses her concerns, lecturing that they should just do what they can. Sophia is taken aback by his condescending and utterly dismissive response. A close-up on Kronos' eye reveals a sudden, sharp flash of irritation. Intimidated, Sophia stammers as she tries to explain her reasoning. Kronos scoffs, saying money won't be an issue with the Floor Lord reward. Sophia nervously explains that she had already factored that into her calculations. He then suggestively invites her to his room to discuss it privately. Sophia is internally shocked and disgusted by his inappropriate advance. She quickly pivots, explaining the Floor Lord subjugation isn't yet confirmed. Sophia realizes her grave mistake the moment she mentions Vim's name. Kronos' face becomes a mask of shadow as he orders her not to speak his name. Sophia is frozen in her seat, paralyzed with sheer terror. Later, she quietly explains that she is using the previous member's records. Melis angrily questions why it's not approved, blaming Vim for the delay. Sophia clarifies that normally the approval would have already been granted. The conversation is shattered by the sound of Kronos smashing his fist down. The entire party freezes, startled by his sudden, violent outburst of rage. Grinding his teeth, Kronos sees that it's Vim's fault once again. He explodes in fury as Nicola rushes to his side to calm him down. Nicola insists that the fact they defeated the Floor Lord is undeniable. Sophia watches as they confirm their unity through their shared hatred of Vim. The title card appears for Chapter 19, which is titled Awakening. The scene opens on a peaceful, bright sky dotted with clouds and birds. The view pans down to an ornate chandelier hanging in a luxurious room. In a comfortable bed, Vim's eyes slowly flutter open with a soft sound. Haidmary greets him from a nearby chair, asking if he has woken up. Vim slowly sits up, groggily taking in the unfamiliar, elegant surroundings. He grunts in pain, and Haidmary chides him not to overdo it. Confused and disoriented, Vim struggles to remember what has happened to him. A chaotic montage of the battle against the Floor Lord flashes through his mind. He bolts upright in a panic, shouting to ask what happened to everyone. He clutches his head in agony as Haidmary tells him not to move. He frantically realizes that if he is here, it means he was rescued. Mary gently reassures him that every member of Night Dragonfly was saved. She explains that he has been sleeping soundly for 5 whole days. Vim is stunned into silence by the news of how long he was unconscious. Mary gives him a brilliant, warm smile, telling him he did a great job. He stares at her, her kind and praiseful words slowly sinking in. With a sigh, he collapses back onto the pillows, overcome with profound relief. Tears well in his eyes as he thinks it was worth risking his life. Mary mentions that Chimera is asking to see him now that he is awake. Vim looks toward the door where Mary is now standing. As she touches the door, Mary quietly calls out his name. She turns back to him with a curious look, asking if he had fun. The completely unexpected question leaves Vim speechless and utterly flustered. Blushing furiously, he stammers that maybe, just a little bit, he did. Mary beams, delighted and triumphant at his surprising, honest answer. A lush, green potted plant sits on a table in the corner of the room. The door to the room suddenly begins to rattle and shake violently. It's thrown open as a powerful voice calls out to Vim, my boy. Vim yelps in surprise, recognizing the voice of his leader, Chimera. Chimera, in full, gleaming armor, stands before him in a deep, formal bow. Vim panics, pleading with her to raise her head, utterly flustered. Chimera insists that she must first express her profound gratitude to him. She tells him that for now, she just wants to be allowed to thank him. Lifting her head, she offers him a sincere, powerful, and heartfelt thank you. Vim is overwhelmed, while Mary watches the scene with a sly smile. He stammers that he is just glad that everyone made it out safely. Chimera's eyes well with tears, deeply moved by his life-risking battle. She suddenly lunges toward the bed, shocking both Vim and Mary. She wraps him in a powerful hug, declaring that her gratitude is overflowing. Vim's voice is muffled as he struggles for air against her hard armor. Mary shrieks in protest, realizing that Vim is being squeezed to death. The door opens again, revealing Mark, Arbel, and the others with flowers. They arrive just in time to see Chimera crushing Vim in her embrace. Arbel's face crumples with emotion as he cries out Vim's name. He rushes forward to join the hug, weeping with unrestrained gratitude. The scene descends into chaos as Arbel joins Chimera in hugging Vim. Monica tries to dive in as well, but Mary blocks her, furious. Monica protests while Hans tries to scold them for their behavior. In the middle of it all, Chimera reverently calls Vim her benefactor. A basket of fresh fruit sits on a nearby table, a get-well gift. Chimera, finally composed, addresses the room with her leader's authority. She orders everyone to keep their greetings brief, as Vim is still recovering. Mark mutters under his breath that she was the one just crushing him. Chimera clenches her gauntlet and announces that it will be one at a time. A long line of grateful adventurers forms to shake Vim's hand. Vim, blushing, insists he's not the savior they are making him out to be. Chimera impatiently declares that her turn to thank him is not yet over. The line continues, with Arbel attempting to get in for a second time. Chimera catches him, shouting that he has already had his turn. Arbel tries to play innocent, but knows he has been caught red-handed. Mar jokes that if Chimera had kept her grip, she would have killed Vim. Hans finally intervenes, telling his leader that he needs a word with her. He drags the protesting Chimera away, reminding her that she's also a patient. Left in the sudden quiet, Vim lets out a soft, happy, and relieved laugh. Mary tells Vim that things have settled, and he should rest well now. Vim, with a bandage on his cheek, quietly thanks her for her care. Gaiman bursts in, excitedly praising Vim for his incredible fighting prowess. A female party member clasps her hands, sincerely thanking him for saving her life. Mark and another adventurer are reduced to tears, overcome with gratitude for Vim. Vim sits on his bed, a small, proud smile on his face. He clutches his shirt, his heart full for being thanked by so many people. He thinks about officially joining Night Dragonfly and what the future holds. Outside his room, party members turn away reporters and other bothersome visitors. The bustling from outside makes Vim feel the weight of so many people. His thoughts darken as he remembers the faces of those who thanked him. He clutches his shirt in a sudden grip of anxiety, feeling this is bad. He thinks their goodwill is too much, that it's presumptuous of him to accept. A wave of his old self-loathing begins to bubble up to the surface. He tries to deny these dark feelings, insisting it's not what he truly thinks. Overwhelmed by the pressure, he collapses back in a bed and hides under the covers. In the hallway, Haid Mary stands silently, sensing his sudden despair. At the Grand Adventurers Guild, a new development begins to unfold. The investigator Dominic reports to his superior that Vim Shutterhouse has awakened. Dominic asks if the official report is ready, as rumors are already spreading. He explains that people are saying a provisional enchanter defeated the Floor Lord. From the shadows, the guild master acknowledges the rumor with a quiet affirmation. The guild master notes that this is a rare and happy occasion for them. He declares his intention to go to the hospital to see Vim himself. The guild master decides he will also question Dragon's Fong about the 97th floor. A new, sunny day begins over the rooftops of the city of Fire and Buron. A lone figure hurries down a quiet cobblestone alleyway. The figure, Haid Mary, looks around in a frantic, sweaty panic. A hand carefully adjusts the focus on a spyglass. Another hand scribbles furiously in a small, open journal. On a rooftop, Haid Mary spies on Vim, meticulously chronicling his hydration levels. A bonus chapter begins, showing Haid Mary and a stern-looking Arbel. An ornate book labeled Vim No. 105 lies forgotten on the floor. The Honorable Arbel walks down the hall and notices the lost book. He picks it up, wondering what this curious object could possibly be. Opening it, he is shocked to find pages of numbers, text, and body weight. He recognizes Vim's name and wonders if this is his personal diary. He concludes it isn't a simple health log and knows he shouldn't read it. But he notices the extreme detail and wonders what a censored word means. He hears a noise and looks up, startled by something down the hall. In the distance, he spots Haid Mary frantically searching for something. A close-up shows Haid Mary's face, contorted in pure panic. Arbel wonders why she seems to be in such a state of distress. He calls out her name, catching her completely by surprise. Haid Mary freezes, sweating, and awkwardly claims their meeting is a coincidence. Arbel holds up the book, asking her why she is so flustered. Her eyes widen in horror as she realizes he has found her diary. She lets out a silent, terrified scream, her secret about to be exposed. Arbel asks if the book is hers. He just picked it up. She stammers that she probably doesn't know what's inside it. Arbel insists on seeing it, while she tries to hide behind him. The tank commander Mark appears, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. Mark asks Arbel if he has any idea what's going on. Haid Mary frantically claims the diary is Vim's strange physical measurement log. She launches into a rapid-fire explanation about labyrinth dive preparations. Arbel offers to return to Vim, sending her into a new panic. Mark observes the entire exchange with a look of extreme skepticism. Haid Mary asks what he's so suspicious of, feigning innocence. Mark simply gives her a cold, sideways glance. He flips to a page listing found items, including a handkerchief. He reads an entry transcribing her coincidental meeting with Vim. Mark realizes with dawning horror that this is Haid Mary's creepy diary. A sudden, violent impact echoes through the hall. Haid Mary delivers a powerful elbow strike, telling Arbel to forgive her. As Arbel collapses, she says she had no choice but to use violence. She explains this is all part of her secret mission as a sage. Mark, utterly horrified by her actions, screams that it's an absolute lie. She declares this is for their great friendship. Arbel reaches out as she menacingly prepares a spell, her eyes shadowed. She unleashes a memory-wiping spell, Beyond Oblivion, with a powerful blast. The sky is clear, the strange incident seemingly erased from memory. Vim takes a light jog through the mansion's courtyard. Hail Mary coincidentally appears, greeting him with a cheerful wave. She hands him a bottle of water, telling him he's worked hard. He is surprised but gratefully accepts, realizing he was thirsty. He takes a long drink from the bottle she offered him. He looks at her, his expression calm and clear. A dizzying effect fades as his mind feels refreshed. He thanks her for always helping him, feeling his head is cleared. She smiles, saying she will always help within her power. She winks, telling him to leave it to her, as she knows everything. A glowing teleportation gate is explained as the link between labyrinth floors. An ancient text from Dr. Hinks speculates on a labyrinth's nature. Vim holds a beautifully illustrated book, a gift from Chimera. He lies in bed reading, thinking how wonderful Dr. Hinks's essays are. A warm smile spreads across his face, feeling a kinship with the author. His eyes narrow as he reads a radical hypothesis about the labyrinth. A voice calls out his name, startling him from his reading. Chimera stands over his bed, teasing him for ignoring her. She apologizes for interrupting, seeing how much he enjoys the book. Vim gushes with excitement, having never expected to read Labyrinth Freaks. Chimera admits she had to pull some strings to acquire such a rare tome. Vim thanks her profusely, explaining the book's rarity to appease Chimera. He wonders if any other members of Night Dragonfly share his academic interests. Chimera informs him he has a visitor and asks if he is well enough. A close-up shows the rubber tip of a crutch on the ground. Vim stumbles on his crutches, but Chimera is there to catch him. He thanks her with a sheepish smile, insisting he has recovered a lot. An elderly man lectures Vim, telling him he cannot keep overexerting himself. Vim, recovering in bed, listens to an older man's stern warning. Chimera leads Vim down a corridor, explaining that guests are not permitted in this room. Vim is taken aback, questioning why he would be considered a guest who cannot enter. She clarifies that the door ahead is off limits, but doesn't explain why. Sweating, Vim stammers as he asks what, exactly, she means by calling him a guest. Chimera offers only a small, mysterious smile in response to his anxious question. A deep voice from beyond announces that the guild master wishes to meet with him. An imposing man with long white hair walks through a courtyard with heavy, deliberate steps. A close-up reveals his immense, almost oppressive aura as he continues his stroll. A man and his young son watch in awe as the powerful figure approaches them. A small dog barks aggressively at the man, unafraid of his imposing size. An aide hurries to his side, asking the guild master to tone down his intimidating presence. The guild master, Gottelf Nonnenhauer, dismisses the concern, stating he is merely walking. The small dog whimpers and collapses, overwhelmed by Gottelf's sheer force of will. Gottelf pauses his walk, a silent acknowledgement of the power he projects. A portly man approaches from behind, calling out to the guild master. The man identifies himself as a reporter, hear about the recent Vim Shutterhouse incident. Gottelf turns slightly, stating bluntly that he has nothing to say on the matter. The reporter persists, claiming an enchanter soloing a floor lord is too big to ignore. Gottelf's expression hardens as he repeats that he has nothing to discuss. The reporter changes tactics, hinting that a donation to the guild might get him story. Gottelf's eye widens behind his dark glasses, his patience finally snapping. His massive shadow looms over the reporter as he asks if he's being bribed. The aide, Dominic, looks on with an expression of weary resignation. The reporter begins to stammer, realizing the grave error he has just made. His face breaks out in a cold sweat as pure terror takes hold. Gottelf clenches a massive fist, roaring that the man is an insolent fool. His aide shouts a desperate warning, trying to prevent what's coming next. The reporter lets out a shriek of terror, shielding his head with his hands. Gottelf's fist swings forward with the force of a battering ram. The punch stops just millimeters from the reporter's face, a show of incredible control. The reporter's face is a mask of shock, bracing for an impact that never comes. The sheer wind pressure from a missed punch sends him flying backward onto the ground. He touches his nose, shocked to find it bleeding from the blast of air. Lying on the ground, he is completely stunned and disoriented by the display of power. Gottelf cracks his knuckles, preparing to deliver a righteous lecture. He declares that as a man of the cloth, he cannot overlook such blatant filth. The reporter can only tremble on the ground, utterly terrified and defeated. Gottelf crouches, telling the man he should be chasing more worthwhile stories. Dominic points out that assaulting a reporter, even with wind, is a bad look. Suddenly panicked, Gottelf grabs the man, begging him not to write about the incident. He offers to heal the reporter, who is now scrambling to get away from him. The scene transitions to the stately, ornate architecture of the guild's main building. Inside a grand reception room, Gottelf apologizes for making Vim come all this way. Vim sits rigidly on a sofa, his face slick with nervous sweat. The imposing figure formally introduces himself as Gottelf, the guild master. Vim sits alone in the vast room, returning the introduction with a nervous stammer. His face is a comical mess of terror, his eyes bugging out of his head. A flashback shows Gottelf as a legendary hero, standing over a slain beast. A chart illustrates the immense power of a war priest class like Gottelf. Gottelf reveals his title, Gottelf of the Diamond, and asks to call Vim Lord Vim. Vim, internally screaming about how scary the man is, can only squeak out an agreement. Gottelf lets out a booming laugh, telling the boy there's no need to be so tense. He smiles, explaining he just has a few things he needs to confirm with him. Sitting far across the room, Vim politely thanks him for the congratulations. Gottelf praises Vim's great achievement in clearing the 98th floor all by himself. He beams at Vim, telling him that he did a truly wonderful job. Vim looks utterly confused, questioning the phrase "by myself." He insists that the entire Night Dragonfly party worked together to defeat the Floor Lord. Gottelf erupts in laughter, realizing this is the story Chimera must have told him. He explains that since Vim drew out the final form, it was effectively his solo victory. The Guildmaster states that Chimera and the party agree. Only Vim has yet to accept it. He urges Vim to accept the proper evaluation and credit he is due. Gottelf formally invites him to the Treading Line Festival to receive his prize. Vim's expression remains tense as he processes the incredible news. An illustration depicts the grand parade of the festival, celebrating a Floor Lord's defeat. Gottelf explains that because 2 floors were cleared, the celebration will be combined. He declares that it will be the largest, most spectacular festival in the city's history. His expression grows serious as he looks at Vim with a piercing gaze. Vim looks back, bracing himself for the true purpose of this meeting. Gottelf recounts the 2 recent, exceptional victories against the Floor Lords. He points out the strange fact that the hero of the first victory was expelled. Vim forces a pained smile, clearly uncomfortable with this line of questioning. Gottelf says it's no surprise Vim is suspicious. The official story doesn't make sense. He asks if Vim knows why the subjugation of the 97th floor is still unapproved. Dominic steps forward, revealing that he was the one who halted the process. Vim is shocked, stating that he was sure all the paperwork was in order. Dominic confirms the documents were perfect, which is precisely why he was suspicious. He explains that he felt Vim's own contributions were deliberately downplayed in the report. An image of the first Floor Lord's corpse appears as he mentions the investigation. Gottelf observes that, given Vim's personality, he tends to understate his own work. Vim insists he only wrote the facts, but Dominic is ready to refute that. The aide lays out the official story. The other 3 were exhausted, and Vim landed the last hit. Dominic then reveals he disguised himself as a reporter to speak with Kronos directly. A flashback shows Dominic interviewing the arrogant swordsman in his party house. Kronos boasts that he was the one who split the Floor Lord in 2. Dominic concludes his report. Kronos has taken full credit for the victory. Vim covers his face in shame and frustration, asking why this is happening. Dominic coldly observes that Kronos seems to have a greatly inflated sense of self. Vim stammers excuses, suggesting Kronos was just exaggerating for the reporter's benefit. Gottelf dismisses the idea, stating that Kronos simply lacks the capacity for greatness. Vim looks up, finally asking what the guildmaster is demanding of him. Gottelf declares that overlooking such a falsehood about a great honor is a sin. His eyes narrow as he tells Vim that he has the right to reclaim his honor. The weight of the offer sinks in. Vim looks down, his expression troubled. He clutches his shirt, overwhelmed by the prospect of reopening that old wound. The painful memories of his time with Dragon's Fong are a blur he cannot face. He recounts his journey, victory, expulsion, and finding a new home with Night Dragonfly. He continues, recalling the recent triumph and the praise he finally received. He looks up, his fear replaced by cold calm, and asks if there's a problem. Dominic is visibly startled by Vim's sudden, unexpected shift in demeanor. In his imposing office, the guild master regards Vim with a stern, unreadable expression. Vim snaps back to awareness, his face a mask of startled confusion. He apologizes, explaining that he fought so desperately he barely remembers the battle. The guild master understands, but insists Vim must accept the glory for his victory. Outside the Grand Adventurers Guild, the day continues, unaware of the meeting within. Chimera asks the guild master how the interview went. He admits he doesn't know. He wonders aloud if Vim even grasps that he defeated the Floor Lord. The guild master confesses he wouldn't have the confidence to pick him out of crowd. He looked like an ordinary boy, yet could annihilate them all in an instant. He warns Chimera not to get too involved, as money will not sway him. Chimera smiles knowingly, accepting his cautionary words with quiet confidence. The guild master gives the same warning to Hans, who reluctantly agrees. Chimera asks if Vim admitted to the 97th floor incident. He regretfully did not. As he leaves, the guild master reflects on the one thing he sensed from Vim. In a flashback, Vim's cold eye stares back as he asks if there's a problem. The guild master recalls seeing a glimpse of something deep within him, like a core. He is left wondering what kind of being he was truly facing in that room.